At the very start of a trainer's journey, three creatures wait patiently in their spheres, each one carrying the quiet weight of an entire adventure yet to unfold. The grass type stands rooted in tradition, the fire type burns with untamed possibility, and the water type flows between the two with calm adaptability. These are the starter Pokémon, the first companions, the ones that shape not just a team, but the tone of an entire adventure. Tonight, we drift through every starter Pokémon across all generations, exploring how they evolve, what defines each line, and why these particular creatures have guided trainers for decades. Before you settle in, maybe tap subscribe for more calm stories, and share where you're watching from tonight as we begin in the Kanto region, where the starter tradition was first established in the mid-1990s. Bulbasaur, the seed Pokémon, was designated as number 1 in the National Pokédex for reasons that went beyond simple alphabetical ordering. Its dual grass and poison typing made it the only starter in the original trio to carry 2 types from the very beginning. The bulb on its back, described in Pokédex entries as growing from birth, contains nutrients that sustain the creature during its early development. This symbiotic relationship between plant and animal formed the conceptual foundation for Bulbasaur's design, creating a creature that blurred the line between flora and fauna in ways that felt both natural and fantastical. The evolution into Ivysaur occurs at level 16, a threshold deliberately set to coincide with the player's journey toward the 3rd gym badge in most playthroughs. The bulb grows larger, heavier, supported by a body that has strengthened to bear the increased weight. Pokédex entries describe Ivysaur spending more time in sunlight as the plant matures, photosynthesis becoming increasingly important to its biology. The creature's posture shifts slightly, accommodating the growing bulb while maintaining mobility. This middle stage represents balance, neither the compact portability of Bulbasaur nor the stationary presence of its final form. Venusaur emerges at level 32, the bulb finally blooming into a massive flower that dominates the creature's silhouette. The flower, described as emitting a soothing fragrance that calms emotions, serves both aesthetic and functional purposes within the Pokémon's biology. The petals spread wide, capable of absorbing sunlight across a vast surface area. Venusaur's weight increases dramatically, transforming it from a mobile creature into something more planted, more permanent. The design reflects a shift from active hunter to patient predator, a Pokémon that waits rather than chases. The decision to make Venusaur the final evolution, rather than introducing a 4th stage, was deliberate, establishing a pattern that would define starter lines for decades. 3 stages became the standard, a progression from small and approachable to large and powerful without crossing into the excessive. Venusaur represented the endpoint of Bulbasaur's journey, a creature that had reached its full potential and needed nothing more. This restraint in design philosophy created satisfaction rather than perpetual anticipation, giving each starter line a sense of completion. Charmander, the lizard Pokémon, carried fire on its tail from the moment it hatched, a flame that Pokédex entries described as reflecting its life force. If the flame were to go out, the Pokémon would die, creating an inherent vulnerability that contrasted with the type's aggressive nature. This detail, while somewhat dark for a children's game, added emotional weight to Charmander's existence, making every battle feel slightly more perilous. The flame served as both a strength and a weakness, a constant that defined the creature's identity across all 3 evolutionary stages. The evolution into Charmeleon occurs at level 16, matching Ivysaur's threshold and maintaining parity across the starter trio. Charmeleon grows more aggressive, more territorial, described in Pokédex entries as eager to battle and difficult to control for inexperienced trainers. The tail flame burns brighter, hotter, reflecting increased power but also increased danger. The claws sharpen, the body elongates, and the friendly demeanor of Charmander gives way to something more primal. This middle stage represents adolescence, a period of growth that challenges both the Pokémon and its trainer. Charizard emerges at level 36, 4 levels later than Venusaur, a detail that created the early game balance issues, but reinforced the idea that fire types required more patience to reach their full power. The wings, completely absent in Charmander and barely visible in Charmeleon, suddenly dominate the design, transforming a ground-bound lizard into a dragon-like flyer. The typing, however, remains fire and flying rather than fire and dragon, a decision that frustrated players both for years, but was justified through internal design logic. True dragons were meant to be rare, special, and Charizard, despite its appearance, was classified as a starter, something accessible rather than legendary. The flame at Charizard's tail reaches temperatures described in the Pokédex as capable of melting boulders, hot enough to pose a genuine threat to anything nearby. The creature's battle prowess increases dramatically, transforming it into one of the most formidable Pokémon available in the early game. Its popularity among players, however, created a paradox where Charizard became so beloved that it overshadowed the other Kanto starters in cultural impact. This imbalance would influence how future starter designs were approached, with Game Freak consciously trying to create more equitable appeal across each trio. Squirtle, the tiny turtle Pokémon, completed the Kanto trio with a water typing that offered defensive stability in a region filled with rock, ground, and fire-type challenges. The shell on its back provided protection, allowing Squirtle to withdraw completely when threatened, a defensive option unavailable to its starter companions. This shell, described as hardening with age, would grow increasingly important as the creature evolved, eventually becoming the defining feature of its final form. Squirtle's design emphasized cuteness and approachability, creating a creature that felt safe, reliable, a companion rather than a weapon. The evolution into Wartortle occurs at level 16, maintaining the established pattern. The tail, absent in Squirtle's design, or at least minimal, suddenly becomes prominent, covered in fur that gives Wartortle a more mature appearance. Pokédex entries describe this tail as being highly prized, though for what purpose the entries don't specify, adding an element of mystery to the creature's biology. The ears become pointed, almost wing-like, and the overall silhouette shifts from round and compact to longer and more streamlined. This middle stage represents elegance, a transitional form that balances Squirtle's cuteness with Blastoise's power. Blastoise emerges at level 36, matching Charizard's timing and creating a sense of rivalry between the two final evolutions. The shell becomes a weapon platform, sprouting two massive cannons capable of firing water with enough force to punch through steel. This transformation, from a simple protective shell to an artillery platform, represented a dramatic shift in design philosophy. Blastoise wasn't just a bigger turtle, it was a living weapon, a tank in every sense of the word. The cannons, described as retractable in some Pokédex entries, added mechanical elements to an otherwise organic design. The decision to give Blastoise cannons, rather than simply larger water attacks, reflected the era's fascination with military aesthetics and mechanical augmentation. The design felt futuristic, technological, even though Blastoise itself was a living creature. This blend of natural and artificial would recur in later starter designs, creating Pokémon that existed at the intersection of biology and engineering. Blastoise represented power through adaptation, a creature that had modified its own body to become more effective in battle. Before you drift off, maybe tap subscribe for more gentle videos, and let me know where you're listening from tonight, as we move into the Johto region, where the second generation of starters introduced new type combinations and design philosophies that would influence every generation that followed. Chikorita, the leaf Pokémon, began the Johto starter trio with a pure grass typing that felt almost defiant in its simplicity. No secondary poison type, no hidden complexity, just grass in its most elemental form. The leaf on its head, described as releasing a pleasant aroma, served both as a sensory weapon and a temperature regulator. Chikorita could emit this scent to calm aggressive opponents or check humidity levels in its environment, functionality that made the leaf more than decorative. The design emphasized gentleness, creating a starter that felt peaceful, almost passive, in contrast to the more aggressive fire and water types that would accompany it. The evolution into Bayleaf occurs at level 16, maintaining the now established tradition. The single leaf multiplies, forming a collar of leaves around Bayleaf's neck that gives the creature a more regal appearance. The body elongates, the legs strengthen, and the overall posture becomes more confident. Pokédex entries describe the leaves emitting spicy aromas that invigorate those who smell them, shifting the scent from calming to energizing. This change in function reflected Bayleaf's middle stage status, no longer needing to rely on defense, but not yet powerful enough to dominate through force. Meganium emerges at level 32, earlier than its Kanto predecessors, a timing adjustment that gave grass types a slight edge in the leveling race. The collar of leaves becomes a massive flowering ring, almost antenna-like structures that radiate from Meganium's neck. The flower petals, described as reviving dead plants with their breath, elevated Meganium from simple combatant to something almost divine, a creature with healing properties that extended beyond battle. The design emphasized grace and serenity, creating a final evolution that felt more like a guardian than a warrior. The reception to Meganium among competitive players was mixed, with many finding its pure grass typing and defensive stat distribution less appealing than the offensive power of other starters. This disconnect between design intent and player expectation created discussions about whether starters should prioritize aesthetic appeal or competitive viability. Meganium succeeded as a design, creating a memorable and distinct creature, but struggled in the metagame where type, disadvantages, and limited offensive presence hindered its effectiveness. This tension between beauty and power would recur throughout the series. Cyndaquil, the fire mouse Pokémon, brought a mammalian design to the Firestarter archetype, breaking from Charmander's reptilian template. The flames along its back, described as flaring when frightened or angry, served as both a defensive mechanism and an emotional indicator. These flames, completely absent when Cyndaquil was calm, created visual dynamism that made the Pokémon's mood immediately apparent. The decision to base the design on an echidna rather than a more common mammal gave Cyndaquil a distinctive silhouette that stood apart from previous starters. The evolution into Quilava occurs at level 14, 2 levels earlier than the established 16, a change that gave Johto starters slightly different pacing. The flames extend, covering more of Quilava's back and creating a more aggressive visual presence. The body elongates, becoming sleeker, faster looking, and the overall design shifts from defensive curling to aggressive striking. Pokédex entries describe Quilava's flames as capable of creating shimmering heat hazes that obscure its movements, adding a tactical dimension to what had been purely aesthetic fire. This middle stage represented transition, shedding Cyndaquil's timidity for something bolder. Typhlosion emerges at level 36, returning to the later evolution threshold that fire types had established in Kanto. The flames erupt into a full collar of fire around Typhlosion's neck, creating an intimidating mane that obscured the creature's actual body size. The design emphasized raw power, with flames described as reaching temperatures capable of causing shimmering mirages. Typhlosion's posture, more upright than its pre-evolutions, gave it an almost humanoid silhouette that would become more pronounced in later interpretations. The decision to make Typhlosion quadrupedal but capable of bipedal movement created flexibility in how the Pokémon was portrayed across different media. The games typically showed it on all fours, while anime and promotional material often depicted it standing upright, creating visual variety that kept the design interesting. This ambiguity in posture became a defining feature, allowing Typhlosion to shift between bestial and humanoid depending on context. The flames, the defining feature across all three stages, reached their peak in Typhlosion, creating a creature that embodied fire's destructive and illuminating qualities. Totodile, the Big Jaw Pokémon, completed the Johto trio with a water typing built around aggression rather than defense. The massive jaws, disproportionate to Totodile's small body, immediately communicated power and danger despite the creature's playful design. Pokédex entries describe these jaws as capable of crushing anything, a claim that felt hyperbolic but established Totodile as a predator from about birth. The design balanced cuteness with menace, creating a starter that felt friendly but capable, approachable but not harmless. The evolution into Croconaw occurs at level 18, later than Quilava, but earlier than some Kanto starters, maintaining the inconsistent timing that gave each generation its own rhythm. The jaws grow even larger, the teeth more prominent, and the overall design becomes more overtly aggressive. Croconaw's stance, more upright than Totodile's, suggested evolution toward bipedalism that would complete in the final stage. Pokédex entries describe Croconaw as unable to fully close its mouth due to the size of its teeth, a detail that added realism to an otherwise fantastical design. Feraligatr emerges at level 30, the earliest final evolution among the Johto starters, and one of the earliest in the entire series at that point. The full bipedal stance, the massive jaw, and the powerful limbs create a creature that looks more like a kaiju than a starter Pokémon. The design emphasized brute force, with spikes along the back and tail adding to the aggressive silhouette. Feraligatr's name, a portmanteau of feral and alligator, captured the essence of a creature that had abandoned any pretense of domestication. The typing remained pure water throughout all three stages, a simplicity that allowed Feraligatr's design to focus entirely on physical presence rather than type gimmicks. This decision created a starter that felt straightforward, honest in its power, a water type that didn't hide behind secondary typings or defensive tactics. Feraligatr fought directly, relying on raw attack power and intimidation, a philosophy that resonated with players who preferred straightforward strategies. The design's success in creating a memorable final evolution without adding complexity demonstrated that sometimes restraint created more impact than innovation. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, we encounter the Hoenn region, where the third generation of starters introduced designs that pushed further into fantastical territory, embracing elements that previous generations had only hinted at. Trico, the wood gecko Pokémon, brought a reptilian design back to the grass type, creating a starter that felt more active, more predatory than Chikorita's peaceful aesthetic. The tail, large and bushy, despite Trico's otherwise sleek profile, served as both a balance tool and a sensory organ. Pokédex entries describe Trico climbing trees with ease, using tiny spikes on its feet to grip bark, a level of biological detail that grounded the fantasy creature in realistic animal behavior. The design emphasized agility and coolness, creating a grass starter that felt like it could keep pace with the more aggressive fire and water types. The evolution into Grovel occurs at level 16, returning to the standard timing after Johto's experimentation. The tail becomes even more elaborate, almost leaf-like, and the overall silhouette becomes more blade-like, more aggressive. Grovel's design introduced elements of stealth and speed with its sleek body and predatory stance, suggesting a creature built for quick strikes rather than sustained combat. Pokédex entries describe Grovyle as able to move silently through forests, a ninja-like quality that added depth to what could have been a simple mid-evolution design. Sceptile emerges at level 36, the latest grass-type final evolution up to that point. The tail becomes a full array of leaf-like structures, almost resembling plant fronds, and the overall design reaches its peak of aggression and elegance. Yellow spheres on Sceptile's back, described as seeds in some interpretations, added visual interest without clearly defined function, a design choice that left room for player interpretation. Sceptile's stance, fully upright and humanoid, completed the transition from quadrupedal gecko to bipedal warrior. The design philosophy behind Sceptile reflected a shift in how grass starters were conceived, moving away from the gentle guardian archetype towards something more combat-focused. Sceptile looked dangerous, capable, a grass type that could compete with dragon types in terms of visual intimidation. This redefinition of what a grass starter could be influenced future designs, opening the door for more aggressive, plant-based Pokémon. The addition of a dragon typing in Sceptile's Mega Evolution years later validated this design direction, acknowledging that the creature had always carried dragon-like qualities. Torchic, the chick Pokémon, revolutionized the fire starter archetype by introducing a bird design, breaking completely from the reptilian and mammalian templates that had dominated previous generations. The small, fluffy appearance contradicted expectations of what a fire type should look like, creating cognitive dissonance that made Torchic memorable. Pokédex entries described internal flames that kept Torchic warm even in freezing conditions, a biological detail that explained how such a small, vulnerable-looking creature could survive. The design emphasized cuteness to an extreme degree, betting that players would embrace a starter that looked more like a pet than a fighter. The evolution into Combusken occurs at level 16, and the transformation is dramatic, almost jarring. The fluffy chick becomes a fighting chicken, introducing a secondary fighting type that completely changed how the line functioned in battle. This was the first time a starter gained a secondary type upon evolution, a design innovation that added strategic depth. Combusken's design, with its martial arts-inspired stance and limb proportions, prepared players for the even more dramatic shift that would come with the final evolution. The middle stage, often overlooked in starter lines, became crucial here as the bridge between two radically different designs. Blaziken emerges at level 36, completing one of the most dramatic transformations in starter history. The fire and fighting typing, the fully humanoid stance, the powerful legs built for kicking attacks, all of these elements created a Pokémon that barely resembled its pre-evolution. Blaziken's design drew heavily from martial arts aesthetics, particularly kickboxing and Muay Thai, creating a fighter that used fire as an extension of its combat style rather than its primary weapon. The wrists, described as being able to shoot fire, gave Blaziken both ranged and melee options. The reception to Blaziken was overwhelmingly positive, with competitive players embracing its unique typing and offensive power. The speed boost ability, introduced in Generation 3, turned Blaziken into a sweeper capable of overwhelming entire teams. This competitive success, combined with the design's visual appeal, made Blaziken one of the most popular starters across any generation. The decision to give it a Mega Evolution in Generation 6, one of the first Pokémon to receive this feature, acknowledged Blaziken's status as a fan favorite and competitive staple. Mudkip, the Mudfish Pokémon, completed the Hoenn trio with a water type that felt more aquatic, more tied to its elemental nature than previous water starters. The fin on its head, described as highly sensitive to changes in water and air, gave Mudkip a practical sensory advantage that grounded its design in functional biology. The amphibious nature, comfortable on land or in water, made Mudkip versatile in ways that purely aquatic Pokémon couldn't match. The design emphasized roundness and approachability, creating another starter that felt safe and friendly despite its typing's potential for power. The evolution into Marshtomp occurs at level 16, introducing a ground secondary typing that created unique resistances and vulnerabilities. The transformation from purely aquatic to amphibious became more pronounced, with Marshtomp's design showing stronger legs and a more stable stance on land. The fin reduced in prominence, no longer the defining feature, and the overall silhouette became stockier, more grounded. Pokédex entries describe Marshtomp living in marshes and bogs, environments that justified the ground typing and created a distinct ecological niche. Swampert emerges at level 36, completing the transformation into a fully amphibious powerhouse. The water and ground typing, unique among starters at the time, created only one weakness, a strategic advantage that made Swampert a defensive wall. The design emphasized bulk and stability, with powerful limbs, a wide stance, and a body built to withstand punishment. The fins, now located on the sides of Swampert's head and tail, served more as sensory organs than swimming aids, reflecting the creature's transition to a more land-based existence, despite retaining water typing. The decision to make Swampert so defensively oriented created a stark contrast with the offensive Blaziken and the balanced Sceptile, giving the Hoenn starters distinct identities in battle. Swampert became known for its ability to tank hits and retaliate with powerful ground and water moves, a strategy that appealed to players who preferred patient, defensive gameplay. The design's success in creating a viable defensive starter demonstrated that not every final evolution needed to prioritize offense, opening design space for future variations. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the Sinnoh region introduces starters that would push type combinations and design aesthetics into new territory, creating some of the most beloved and debated final evolutions in the entire series. Turtwig, the tiny leaf Pokémon, brought a turtle design to the grass type, creating immediate parallels with Squirtle while establishing distinct differences. The twig growing from Turtwig's head, described as photosynthesizing to produce energy, served as both the creature's name inspiration and its defining feature. The shell, brown and earthy rather than Squirtle's blue-green, connected Turtwig more to land than water despite both being shelled creatures. The design emphasized sturdiness and reliability, creating a grass starter that felt defensive, capable of withstanding attacks rather than avoiding them. The evolution into Grottle occurs at level 18, later than most first stage evolutions, giving players more time with the base form. The twig grows into a small bush, and the shell expands dramatically, becoming a platform capable of supporting plant life. Pokédex entries describe Grottle seeking out clean water and knowing where to find it, a detail that added personality beyond combat function. The transformation from tiny turtle to mobile garden represented a unique evolution concept, a Pokémon that was becoming an ecosystem rather than just growing larger. Torterra emerges at level 32, one of the earliest final evolutions in the series, and the Somozos' transformation is staggering in scope. The shell becomes a mountain, complete with a tree growing from its peak, creating a Pokémon that transcends normal size categories. The addition of ground typing, making Torterra grass and ground, created a thematic connection to earth and instability that felt natural given the design. Torterra represented the ultimate expression of the world tree concept, a living landmass that other Pokémon could theoretically inhabit. The design's ambition in depicting a Pokémon as a mobile ecosystem created both visual appeal and practical questions about scale and function. How large was Torterra truly? Could other Pokémon actually live on its back? These questions, never fully answered, added to the mystique. The typing, while thematically perfect, created a crippling ice weakness that made Torterra difficult to use competitively, a reminder that design appeal and competitive viability didn't always align. Despite this weakness, Torterra remained popular for its unique concept and imposing presence. Chimchar, the chimp Pokémon, brought a primate design to the fire type, creating the first monkey-based starter. The flame on its rear, described as fueled by gas produced in its stomach, added a biological explanation that grounded the fantastical element. Chimchar's design emphasized energy and playfulness, creating a fire starter that felt mischievous rather than aggressive. The choice to base the design on a monkey rather than the traditional reptilian or avian forms demonstrated continued willingness to experiment with fire starter templates. The evolution into Monferno occurs at level 14, the earliest first stage evolution among Sinnoh starters, giving fire types a head start in the leveling race. The addition of fighting type, making Monferno fire and fighting, created immediate comparisons to Blaziken's line. The tail flame grows more pronounced, becoming a primary visual element, and the overall design becomes more combative, more focused on martial prowess. Monferno's design incorporated elements of martial arts, particularly staff fighting, reflected in how the creature used its tail as both a weapon and a tool. Infernape emerges at level 36, completing the transformation into a full-fledged fighter. The fire and fighting typing, while not unique after Blaziken, was executed differently, with Infernape emphasizing speed and special attacks, where Blaziken focused on physical power. The crown of fire around Infernape's head gave it a regal appearance, and the overall design drew heavily from Journey to the West's Sun Wukong, the Monkey King of Chinese mythology. This cultural reference added depth for players familiar with the story, while remaining visually appealing for those who weren't. The decision to create another fire and fighting starter so soon after Blaziken drew criticism from some fans who wanted more type diversity, but Infernape's distinct design and battle style differentiated it enough to justify the repeated typing. The execution mattered as much as the concept, and Infernape succeeded in feeling like its own Pokémon rather than a Blaziken clone. The speed-focused stat distribution and special attack capability created different strategic applications, proving that typing alone didn't define a Pokémon's identity. Piplup, the penguin Pokémon, completed the Sinnoh trio with a water type built around pride and dignity rather than aggression or defense. Pokédex entries describe Piplup as stubbornly refusing help even when struggling, a personality trait that made the design more than just a cute penguin. The dignified posture, the insistence on self-sufficiency, these character elements elevated Piplup beyond simple type representation. The design emphasized cuteness while maintaining an air of superiority, creating a starter that felt simultaneously approachable and aloof. The evolution into Prinplup occurs at level 16, returning to standard timing, and the transformation emphasizes Piplup's prideful nature. The wings become more pronounced, the body grows taller and more regal, and the overall design suggests a creature growing into aristocracy. Pokédex entries describe Prinplup living alone, refusing to form groups, further emphasizing the prideful independence established in the base form. This middle evolution served as transition from cute child to royal adult, maintaining personality consistency while showing physical growth. Empoleon emerges at level 36, and the addition of steel typing creates the first water and steel combination in the game, a unique defensive profile. The design fully embraces the Emperor Penguin inspiration, with a crown-like crest, a regal bearing, and a color scheme of blue, white, and gold that suggested royalty. The wings transform into blades, described in Pokédex entries as being sharper than swords, giving Empoleon both thematic and functional weapons. The steel, typing, while unexpected for a penguin, was justified through the blade wings and armored appearance. Empoleon's unique typing created strategic value, with numerous resistances and only a few weaknesses, making it a defensive pivot in battle. The design's success in combining penguin biology with steel-type aesthetics demonstrated that unusual type combinations could work when properly integrated into the design. Empoleon represented innovation in starter design, proving that even common animals like penguins could be transformed into something fantastical through creative type assignments and thoughtful design details. If you're still awake halfway through, maybe subscribe before you drift off, and tell me what time it is where you're watching from, as we transition into the Unova region, where the 5th generation of starters would introduce designs that divided fan opinions more dramatically than any previous generation. Snivy, the grass snake Pokémon, brought a serpentine design to grass types, creating a starter with no legs, no visible limbs, just a sleek body built for elegant movement. The leaf-like collar and tail gave Snivy a regal appearance from birth, and Pokédex entries describing it as able to photosynthesize connected the design back to plant biology. The smug expression, present across all official artwork, gave Snivy a personality that transcended game mechanics, creating a starter that felt confident, almost arrogant. This attitude became a defining trait that players either loved or found off-putting. The evolution into Servine occurs at level 17, maintaining the serpentine form while adding length and elegance. The leaf collar reduces slightly, and the overall design becomes more streamlined, more focused on speed and grace than defensive coverage. Servine's design emphasized the middle evolution's role as refinement rather than dramatic transformation, creating continuity across the line that felt more natural than some previous starters. The subtle changes, the slight adjustment to proportions, the more mature expression, all of these details showed growth without abandoning the core design. Superior emerges at level 36, completing the transformation into a royal serpent. The name itself, combining Superior and Emperor, communicated the design's intent. Superior looks down on others, literally and figuratively, with a height and posture that demanded respect. The leaf collar returns and expands, creating a more elaborate visual element, and the overall design reaches peak elegance. The contrary ability, turning stat drops into stat boosts, created a unique battle identity that rewarded creative strategies. The decision to keep Superior as pure grass typing throughout all 3 stages created debate about missed opportunities. Many players felt that adding a secondary type, perhaps fairy or dragon, would have given Superior more competitive viability. The design looked regal enough to justify dragon typing, and the elegant nature could have supported fairy. Game Freak's choice to maintain pure grass typing prioritized design consistency over competitive balance, a decision that benefited the aesthetic while limiting strategic applications. Superior succeeded as a design while struggling in competitive formats dominated by stronger typings. Tepig, the fire pig Pokémon, brought a pig design to fire types, completing the Chinese zodiac representation that fire starters had been following. The round, friendly appearance created another cute fire starter in the Torchic tradition, and the curly tail added visual interest to an otherwise simple design. Pokédex entries describing internal fire-powering Tepig's energetic nature connected the fire typing to the creature's personality, making the elemental choice feel integrated rather than arbitrary. The design emphasized approachability, creating a starter that felt warm and friendly. The evolution into Pignite occurs at level 17, and the addition of fighting type created immediate concern among fans who had just experienced Infernape's fire and fighting combination. The transformation from quadrupedal pig to bipedal fighter felt sudden, jarring even, and the design aesthetic shifted dramatically from cute to aggressive. Pignite's muscular build, upright stance, and fighting-focused design created a middle evolution that bore little resemblance to its pre-evolution, a disconnect that many players found unsatisfying. The fire and fighting typing, while functional, felt repetitive given recent history. Emboar emerges at level 36, completing the third consecutive fire and fighting starter line, a decision that drew significant criticism from the fan base. The design, inspired by Chinese warrior aesthetics and featuring flame-shaped beard and hair, was well executed in isolation but felt redundant in context. Emboar's bulk and power distinguished it from Blaziken's speed and Infernape's balance, creating a tank-like fighter that approached battles differently. The stat distribution, favoring HP and attack, made Emboar a physical wall breaker rather than a sweeper. The competitive viability of Emboar was middling, with the fire and fighting typing creating more weaknesses than strengths in a metagame filled with strong water, ground, and flying types. The design's success in creating a distinct visual identity couldn't overcome the typing's strategic limitations, and Emboar became known as the least popular fire starter among competitive players. This reception influenced future design decisions, with Game Freak consciously avoiding fire and fighting combinations in subsequent generations. The lesson learned from Emboar's reception was that novelty mattered, that players valued type diversity as much as design quality. Oshawott, the sea otter Pokémon, completed the Unova trio with a water type built around the concept of a natural weapon, the Scalchop on its belly. This shell, described as being used for both attack and defense, gave Oshawott a unique combat identity from the start. The adorable appearance, combined with the practical weapon concept, created a starter that balanced cuteness with capability. Pokédex entries describing how Oshawott cared for and maintained its Scalchop-added personality, suggesting a creature that respected its tools and understood their importance. The evolution into Dewett occurs at level 17, and the Scalchop multiplies into 2 shells, creating a dual-wielding water type. The design incorporated samurai aesthetics, with the shells used like short swords, and the overall stance suggesting martial discipline. Dewote's more serious expression and confident posture represented growing maturity, transitioning from playful otter to trained warrior. This middle evolution succeeded in feeling like a natural progression, neither too similar to the base form nor too disconnected from the final evolution. Samurott emerges at level 36, and the transformation is one of the most dramatic in starter history. The shift from bipedal to quadrupedal, from otter to sea lion, created discontinuity that many players found jarring. Samurott's design, while imposing and well executed, felt like it belonged to a different evolutionary line entirely. The samurai inspiration remained, with a helmet-like crest and blade-like horn, but the overall form factor changed so drastically that it disrupted the visual narrative. The shells transform into swords that Samurott wields in its forelimbs, a cool concept that required the quadrupedal stance to function. The decision to make Samurott quadrupedal when its pre-evolutions were bipedal created ongoing debate about consistency in evolutionary design. Some players appreciated the surprise, the way Samurott defied expectations, while others felt betrayed by the sudden change. Competitive players focused on Samurott's stats, which leaned physical, despite special attack being traditionally favored for water types, creating strategic confusion. The design succeeded in creating a unique final evolution while failing to maintain visual coherence across the line, demonstrating that ambition and consistency sometimes conflicted. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, we encounter the Kalos region, where the 6th generation of starters would introduce designs that embraced fantasy archetypes more overtly than any previous generation, creating starter lines that felt like character classes in a role-playing game. Chespin, the spiny nut Pokémon, brought a mammalian design back to grass types, specifically a chipmunk or hedgehog aesthetic. The shell-like hood, covering Chespin's head and back, described as tough enough to withstand impacts, gave this grass-type defensive capabilities from the start. The design that emphasized roundness and friendliness, creating a starter that looked huggable despite the defensive spine's Pokédex. Entries describing Chespin's curious nature added personality that transcended battle functionality, creating a creature that felt like a companion first and a fighter second. The evolution into Quilladin occurs at level 16, and the transformation emphasizes the defensive shell concept. The hood expands, the body grows rounder, and the overall design becomes more armored. Quilladin's awkward appearance, simultaneously cute and ungainly, created a middle evolution that players had mixed feelings about. Some found the round design charming, while others saw it as a step backward from Chespin's more streamlined appearance. The middle evolution, often the most difficult stage to design effectively, struggled to balance Chespin's cuteness with Chestnut's imposing final form. Chestnut emerges at level 36, and the addition of fighting type creates a grass and fighting combination, the first of its kind among starters. The design fully commits to the knight archetype, with the shell becoming armor, the spines becoming weapons, and the overall stance suggesting a warrior ready for battle. The tank-like build, the shield-like shell, and the fighter's stance created a grass starter that looked capable of withstanding and dealing tremendous damage. The design drew inspiration from knights, chestnuts, and armored mammals, creating a synthesis that felt thematically coherent. The grass and fighting typing created interesting strategic possibilities, with stab fighting moves covering some of grass type's traditional weaknesses. The defensive stat distribution, emphasizing HP and physical defense, supported the tank playstyle that the design suggested. Chestnut's ability, Bulletproof, provided immunity to certain projectile moves, further reinforcing the defensive identity. The design succeeded in creating a grass starter that fought differently than previous generations, prioritizing endurance and counterattacks over speed or special attacks. Fennekin, the pet, fox Pokémon, revolutionized fire starters by introducing a design that clearly telegraphed eventual psychic typing. The large ears, the intelligent expression, the almost magical appearance, all of these elements suggested that Fennekin's line would diverge from the physical fighter archetype that had dominated recent fire starters. The tufts of fur in Fennekin's ears, described as emitting heat exceeding 300 degrees, connected the cute design to dangerous fire capabilities. The balance between adorable and powerful created a starter that appealed across demographic lines. The evolution into Braixen occurs at level 16, and the design introduces the stick, a branch that Braixen keeps in its tail like a wand. This magical girl inspired aesthetic, combined with the increasingly fox-like features, created a middle evolution that clearly foreshadowed psychic typing. Braixen's design incorporated elements of witchcraft and stage magic, with the stick serving as both a wand and a combat tool. The transformation from cute fox to magical creature represented intentional design progression, preparing players for the final evolution's full embrace of the mage archetype. Delphox emerges at level 36, revealing the fire and psychic typing that the previous stages had hinted at. The design fully commits to the witch-mage aesthetic, with robes of fur, a wand disguised as a branch, and an overall appearance that prioritized mysticism over physical combat. Delphox represented a conscious break from the fire and fighting tradition, offering players a special attacking fire type that fought with magic rather than martial arts. The stat distribution, emphasizing special attack and speed, supported the mage playstyle. The reception to Delphox was divided, with some players appreciating the unique typing and aesthetic, while others found the design less appealing than the pre-evolutions. The fully bipedal stance, the witch-like robes, and the somewhat awkward proportions created a final evolution that some felt lost the charm of Fennekin and Braixen. Competitive players embraced Delphox's special attacking capabilities and unique typing combination, while casual players often expressed preference for the earlier stages. This division demonstrated that design appeal was subjective, that what worked for some players failed for others. Froakie, the Bubble Frog Pokémon, completed the Kalos trio with a water type built around the concept of foam and agility. The bubbles on Froakie's back, described as cushioning it from impacts, gave this water starter a defensive element despite its clearly offensive design intent. The frog basis connected Froakie to a long tradition of water-type amphibians, but the foam element added uniqueness. Pokédex entries describing Froakie as vigilant and light on its feet established personality traits that would define the entire evolutionary line. The evolution into Frogadier occurs at level 16, and the ninja aesthetic becomes more pronounced. The foam forms a mane, the body becomes sleeker, and the overall design suggests a creature built for speed and precision rather than power. Frogadier's design incorporated parkour and ninja elements, creating a middle evolution that felt dynamic, active, a Pokémon constantly in motion. The long tongue, wrapped around Frogadier's neck like a scarf, added a biological detail that would become more prominent in the final evolution. Greninja emerges at level 36, completing one of the most popular starter evolutions in the entire franchise. The water and dark typing created a ninja assassin aesthetic that resonated powerfully with players. The design, with its streamlined body, the tongue scarf, and the shuriken-like movements, fully embraced the ninja concept without feeling derivative. Greninja's speed-focused stats, combined with the protein ability that changed its type to match its moves, created a versatile and powerful, competitive Pokémon. The overwhelming popularity of Greninja, amplified by its prominent role in the anime and the special Ash Greninja form introduced later, made it one of the most recognizable Pokémon from the Kalos region. The design's success in creating a cool, powerful, and strategically interesting starter demonstrated the value of committing fully to a concept. Greninja didn't try to be multiple things. It was a ninja, fully and completely, and that clarity of vision created a memorable and beloved final evolution. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the Alola region introduces starters that would embrace the region's unique culture and ecology, creating designs that felt distinctly different from previous generations while maintaining starter line traditions. Rowlet, the grass quill Pokémon, brought an owl design to grass types, creating the first flying type starter. The round, sleepy appearance created immediate appeal, and the bow-tie-like leaf created visual distinctiveness. Pokédex entries describing Rowlet as nocturnal and capable of silent flight connected the design to real owl biology while adding grass-type elements. The decision to make a grass and flying starter was bold, creating a type combination that had never been explored in starter lines. The cute design, combined with the unique typing, made Rowlet instantly popular. The evolution into Dartrix occurs at level 17, and the transformation emphasizes elegance and vanity. Dartrix constantly preens its feathers, described in Pokédex entries as extremely conscious of its appearance, adding personality that made this middle evolution more than just a transitional form. The design maintained the owl basis, while adding more sophisticated visual elements, creating a creature that felt like a teenager, concerned with looks and image. The grass and flying typing remained, maintaining consistency while preparing for the dramatic shift to come. Decidueye emerges at level 34, earlier than most final evolutions, and the reveal of ghost typing replacing flying created one of the most surprising starter evolutions. The archer aesthetic, with leaf arrow quills and a hood-like face, transformed the owl into a hooded marksman. The grass and ghost typing, unique among starters, created strategic opportunities and weaknesses that defined Decidueye's competitive identity. The design drew inspiration from Robin Hood, archers, and extinct Hawaiian owls, creating a synthesis that honored Alola's setting while creating something fantastical. The decision to replace flying with ghost typing at final evolution broke precedent, demonstrating that type combinations weren't fixed across the evolutionary stages. This shift created surprise and intrigue, making Decidueye's evolution feel like a revelation rather than a predictable progression. The competitive viability, however, struggled due to low speed and multiple common weaknesses. The design succeeded aesthetically while facing challenges in practical application, a reminder that visual appeal and battle functionality existed on separate axes. Litten, the fire cat Pokémon, brought a feline design to fire types, creating a starter that looked both cute and capable. The black and red color scheme, the fur described as highly flammable, oil-rich, connected the cat design to fire typing in a way that felt natural. Pokédex entries describing Litten as showing little emotion created personality that distinguished it from more expressive starters. The aloof cat stereotype, combined with fire typing, created a starter that felt independent, self-sufficient, a companion that chose you rather than the other way around. The evolution into Torracat occurs at level 17, and the design grows more aggressive while maintaining quadrupedal stance. The bell-like organ at Torracat's throat, described as producing flames, added a unique biological detail. The muscular build and battle-ready stance suggested evolution toward a powerful fighter, and many players assumed the final evolution would be a quadrupedal tiger. This expectation, established by Torracat's design, made the actual final evolution more surprising and controversial. Incineroar emerges at level 34, revealing a bipedal wrestler design that divided the fan base dramatically. The fire and dark typing, the heel wrestler aesthetic, complete with championship belt markings, the aggressive stance, all of these elements created a final evolution that felt disconnected from Litten's cat design. The wrestling inspiration, drawn from Lucha Libre and professional wrestling's heel characters, was executed with commitment and detail. Incineroar's design worked as a standalone Pokémon, but many players felt it betrayed the quadrupedal, feline aesthetic, established in earlier stages. The controversy around Incineroar's design centered on the quadrupedal to bipedal shift and the wrestling theme that felt unexpected given Litten's setup. Some players embraced Incineroar's personality and unique battle style, particularly in competitive formats where intimidate ability and strong attack stats made it viable. Others never reconciled with the design, preferring to keep Litten or Torracat rather than evolve to a final form they found unappealing. This division demonstrated that surprising players wasn't always positive, that subverting expectations could alienate as easily as delight. Poplio, the sea lion Pokémon, completed the Alola trio with a water type built around performance and sound. The clown nose, the water balloons created from its nose, the playful personality, all of these elements created a starter that felt theatrical, performative. Pokédex entries describing Poplio as working hard to perfect its balloon-making skills added dedication and practice to what could have been simple playfulness. The design embraced cuteness and entertainment, creating a water starter that fought with artistry rather than brute force. The evolutionary Brionne occurs at level 17, and the design shifts toward dancer and performer aesthetics. The frills, the more elegant movements described in Pokédex entries, the overall increase in grace, all of these elements showed Poplio maturing into an entertainer. Brionne's design incorporated elements of pop idols and performers, with the water balloons becoming props in elaborate routines. This middle evolution succeeded in feeling like progression towards something specific, preparing players for the final evolution's full embrace of the performer archetype. Primarina emerges at level 34, revealing the water and fairy typing that created a specialized support and special attacking role. The mermaid-like appearance, the singing voice described as powerful enough to control water, the overall design built around performance and beauty created a final evolution that fully committed to the performer concept. The fairy typing added defensive and offensive utility, covering some of water's traditional weaknesses. Primarina's stat distribution, emphasizing special attack and HP, supported a bulky special attacker playstyle. The gendered appearance of Primarina, clearly feminine, despite the starter gender ratio being 7/8 male, created discussions about design choices and player expectations. Many players felt uncomfortable with their male Poplio evolving into what appeared to be a female performer, a disconnect between game mechanics and design aesthetics. Others appreciated the design regardless of perceived gender, focusing on the unique typing and battle capabilities. This controversy highlighted tensions between mechanical systems and aesthetic choices that occasionally arose in Pokémon design. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, we encounter the Galar region, where the 8th generation of starters would introduce designs that leaned into specific professions and roles, creating starter lines that felt like they represented career paths. Grookey, the chimp Pokémon, brought another primate design to grass types, this time focusing on music and rhythm. The stick Grookey carried everywhere, described as special and imbued with energy from the forest, served as both a drumstick and a narrative device. The design emphasized energy and playfulness, creating a grass starter that felt active, dynamic, constantly in motion. Pokédex entries describing how Grookey's drumming made plants grow connected the musical element to grass typing in a way that felt organic rather than forced. The evolution into Thwackey occurs at level 16, and the design grows more focused on percussion and music. Thwackey carries 2 sticks now, creating more complex rhythms, and the overall design suggests a creature mastering its craft. The hair, styled to resemble leaves or grass blades, maintained the grass typing visually, while the design increasingly focused on the Paldea, musician aspect. This middle evolution balanced biological growth with skill development, showing a Pokémon becoming better at what it does rather than just larger. Rillaboom emerges at level 35, completing the transformation into a gorilla drummer with a massive drum made from a stump. The drum, described as amplifying Grookey-Line's special power, became the defining visual element. Rillaboom's design fully committed to the drummer concept, with the entire battle style built around percussion-based attacks. The pure grass typing, maintained throughout all 3 stages, created consistency while the design underwent dramatic changes. The stat distribution favored attack and HP, creating a physical grass type that hit hard and could take punishment. The Grassy Surge ability created terrain that boosted grass moves, synergizing with Rillaboom's role as a physical attacker. The design's success in creating a memorable final evolution around a specific profession demonstrated that clear concepts worked when executed with commitment. Rillaboom looked like a drummer, fought like a drummer, and existed as a drummer first and a grass type second. This clarity made the design memorable and gave it strong identity separate from previous grass starters. Scorbunny, the rabbit Pokémon, brought a lagomorph design to fire types, creating the first rabbit fire starter. The energetic design, constantly ready to run and jump, emphasized athleticism and speed. Pokédex entries describing Scorbunny's warm chest and constant running connected the fire typing to movement and energy rather than just flames. The design created appeal through action and dynamism, a starter that looked like it was always in motion even in static images. The evolution into Reboot occurs at level 16, and the design shifts dramatically toward a soccer player aesthetic. The fluffy collar resembles a hoodie, the overall stance suggests an athlete in warm-up gear, and the personality becomes more aloof, more focused. This middle evolution, more than most, felt like a distinct stage with its own identity, rather than just a bridge between base and final forms. Reboot's design worked independently, creating a Pokémon that players genuinely wanted to keep at this stage, rather than immediately evolving further. Cinderace emerges at level 35, revealing a pure fire typing that surprised players expecting fire and fighting given the soccer player theme. The athlete design, complete with soccer ball made of fire and striker-focused combat style, created a final evolution built around sports rather than traditional Pokémon aesthetics. Cinderace's design drew inspiration from soccer players, particularly strikers, with the entire visual language communicating speed, precision, and goal-scoring ability. The stat distribution, heavily favoring speed and attack, supported the striker playstyle. The Libero ability, changing Cinderace's type to match its moves before using them, created strategic flexibility that made Cinderace viable in competitive formats. The design's commitment to the soccer theme, while potentially limiting from a fantasy perspective, created strong visual identity that made Cinderace instantly recognizable. The pure fire typing avoided the firefighting repetition that had plagued previous generations, demonstrating that physical fire types didn't need fighting secondary typing to function. Sobble, the water lizard Pokémon, completed the Galar trio with a design built around stealth, camouflage, and emotion. The tears Sobble cried when scared, described as having onion-like properties that made the others cry, created a unique defensive mechanism. The shy, anxious personality gave Sobble emotional depth that many players connected with, creating a starter that felt vulnerable, relatable. The chameleon basis, with the ability to turn invisible when touching water, connected the design to real biological concepts while adding fantastical elements. The evolution into Drizzle occurs at level 16, and the transformation is dramatic, shifting from anxious child to moody teenager. Drizzle's design incorporated elements of awkward adolescence, with the gangly proportions and antisocial behavior creating a middle evolution that felt emotionally authentic. The water manipulation abilities grow more sophisticated, with Drizzle creating water balloons as traps rather than defensive measures. This middle stage succeeded in feeling like genuine growth, showing a Pokémon dealing with changes rather than just becoming larger. Inteleon emerges at level 35, completing one of the most dramatic transformations in starter history. The Spy a Secret Agent aesthetic, complete with finger gun pose and sleek design, created a final evolution that bore little resemblance to Sobble's anxious lizard. The pure water typing, the focus on speed and special attack, and the sniper ability all supported the secret agent concept. Inteleon's design drew from James Bond and spy fiction, creating a cool, confident Pokémon that contrasted sharply with Sobble's personality. The disconnect between Sobble's emotional vulnerability and Inteleon's cool confidence created narrative questions about what happened during evolution. Did Sobble overcome its anxiety or simply learn to hide it? The games never answered these questions, leaving room for player interpretation. Competitively, Inteleon's high speed and special attack, combined with sniper ability boosting critical hits, created a glass cannon that could hit hard but struggled to take hits. The design succeeded in creating something visually distinct while maintaining the water type's traditional special attacking role. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the Paldea region introduces starters that would embrace open-world gameplay and create designs that felt more integrated into the region's Spanish-inspired setting than previous generations. Sprigatito, the grass cat Pokémon, brought a feline design to grass types, creating another quadrupedal grass starter after Torterra. The aromatic leaves covering Sprigatito's body, described as having therapeutic properties, connected the cat design to grass typing through practical biology. The playful personality and adorable appearance created immediate appeal, and many players hoped the final evolution would maintain the quadrupedal cat aesthetic. The design emphasized cuteness and approachability, creating a grass starter that felt like a pet first. The evolution in a Florigato occurs at level 16, maintaining quadrupedal stance while adding a flower-based yo-yo as a signature feature. The design grew more playful, more acrobatic, with the yo-yo serving as both toy and weapon. Florigato's design maintained the cat basis while incorporating elements of performers and acrobats, preparing players for the final evolution's theatrical themes. This middle evolution succeeded in feeling like progression while maintaining consistency with Sprigatito's core design elements. Meowscarada emerges at level 36, revealing the grass and dark typing that created a magician-performer aesthetic. The bipedal stance, the magician's cloak-like fur, and the flower bombs disguised as props created a final evolution built around illusion and deception. Meowscarada's design drew from stage magicians and masked performers, with the entire visual language communicating mystery and theatrical flair. The stat distribution favored speed and attack, creating a fast physical attacker that struck before opponents could respond. The protean-like ability, changing type to match moves, gave Meowscarada strategic flexibility. The design's shift to bipedal stance disappointed players who wanted a quadrupedal final evolution, creating similar reactions to Incineroar's transformation. The magician theme, while well executed, felt unexpected given Sprigatito's setup. Despite controversy around the stance change, Meowscarada succeeded competitively and developed a dedicated fan base that appreciated the unique design and powerful battle capabilities. Fuecoco, the Fire Croc Pokémon, brought a crocodilian design to fire types, creating a starter built around heat absorption and laid-back personality. The square scales, described as absorbing heat and converting it to fire energy, connected the reptilian design to fire typing through practical biology. The relaxed demeanor, the friendly expression, and the overall approachability created a fire starter that felt gentle despite its typing's aggressive associations. The design emphasized roundness and warmth, making Fuecoco feel like a companion rather than a weapon. The evolution into Crocolore occurs at level 16, and the design adds a nest-like structure on the head containing an egg made of fire energy. This bizarre but charming element created visual distinctiveness while raising questions about function and biology. Crocolore's design maintained the crocodilian basis while growing larger and adding the mysterious egg element. The laid-back personality persists, with Pokédex entries describing Crocolore as still fairly relaxed despite increased size and power. Skeledirge emerges at level 36, revealing the fire and ghost typing that created one of the most unique starter type combinations. The design transforms fully into a spectral crocodile with a bird spirit emerging from the mouth during battle. The Dia de los Muertos inspiration, with skeletal decorations and the spiritual bird companion, created a final evolution deeply connected to Paldea's Spanish-inspired culture. The Sedat distribution favored HP and special attack, creating a bulky special attacker that could absorb hits while dealing damage. The Torch Song signature move, combining fire and ghost power with sound-based mechanics, created unique battle utility. The design's embrace of ghost typing, complete with spectral elements and cultural references, made Skeledirge feel thematically rich. The crocodilian basis remained visible, but transformed, showing evolution as metamorphosis rather than simple growth. Skeledirge succeeded in creating a starter that felt culturally specific while maintaining broad appeal. Quaxly, the duckling Pokémon, completed the Paldea trio with a water type built around cleanliness, discipline, and eventually dancing. The perfectly coiffed hair, described as maintained through secretions that repel water and dirt, created a vain but endearing personality. The serious expression and upright stance suggested discipline despite the cute duck design. Pokédex entries describing Quaxly as training seriously and refusing to become disheveled added personality depth that elevated the design beyond simple water bird. The evolution into Quaxwell occurs at level 16, maintaining the disciplined aesthetic while growing more confident and capable. The design added more elaborate hair and a more mature bearing, showing a Pokémon growing into adulthood while maintaining fastidious grooming habits. Quaxwell's design balanced the cute duck elements with increasing sophistication, preparing for the final evolution's dramatic transformation. Quaquaval emerges at level 36, revealing the water and fighting typing that created a samba dancer aesthetic. The carnival-inspired design, complete with feather ornaments and dancing pose, transformed the disciplined duck into a flamboyant performer. The fighting typing connected to capoeira and dance fighting traditions, creating a justification for the type combination. Quaquaval's stat distribution favored attack and speed, creating a fast physical fighter that overwhelmed opponents before they could respond. The Aqua Step signature move, boosting speed while dealing damage, created momentum that made Quaquaval increasingly dangerous as battles progressed. The design's commitment to the dancer theme created strong visual identity, though some players felt the transformation from serious duckling to flamboyant dancer was too dramatic. The carnival aesthetics, deeply connected to Latin American culture, made Quaquaval feel regionally appropriate, while creating a water starter that fought unlike any previous generation. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at how mega evolutions affected certain starters, temporarily transforming them beyond their normal final forms. Venusaur's mega evolution added the thick fat ability and the increased bulk, transforming it into an even more defensive wall capable of shrugging off fire and ice attacks that would normally threaten grass types. The flower grew larger, more elaborate, becoming a dominant visual element that communicated increased power. The design maintained Venusaur's patient, grounded aesthetic while amplifying the attributes that made the original design successful. Charizard received two mega evolutions, X and Y, creating unique paths that emphasized different battle styles. Mega Charizard X gained Dragon typing and became black with blue flames, finally receiving the Dragon classification that fans had wanted since Generation 1. The design became more aggressive, more draconic, with harder edges and a fiercer expression. Mega Charizard Y maintained fire and flying typing while dramatically increasing special attack, creating a glass cannon that prioritized offense over defense. The wings grew enormous, the flames intensified, and the overall design emphasized aerial dominance. Blastoise's Mega Evolution enlarged the cannons and added a massive third cannon on its back, transforming it into a true artillery platform. The Mega Launcher ability increased the power of Pulse and Aura moves, creating strategic synergy with the design's heavy weapons theme. The transformation emphasized Blastoise's role as a ranged attacker, a Pokémon that fought from distance with overwhelming firepower. The Picus design maintained the tank aesthetic while amplifying the mechanical elements that made Blastoise distinct from other water starters. The Blaziken Mega Evolution increased attack and speed, transforming an already fast sweeper into something even more overwhelming. The design added more elaborate plumage and fiercer features while maintaining the kickboxing aesthetic. The speed boost ability compounded with Mega Evolution created a Pokémon that became faster each turn, eventually outspeeding everything. This combination proved so powerful that Mega Blaziken was banned from most competitive formats, demonstrating how Mega Evolution could push already strong Pokémon into broken territory. Swampert's Mega Evolution increased physical bulk and added the Swift Swim ability, creating a rain sweeper that became devastating under the right conditions. The design became more muscular, more imposing, with enhanced fins and a more aggressive stance. The transformation emphasized Swampert's role as a physical tank that could also sweep under rain conditions, versatility that made Mega Swampert popular in competitive formats. The design maintained the amphibious theme while adding visual elements that communicated increased power. Sceptile's Mega Evolution finally added Dragon typing, validating what many players had felt the design deserved from the beginning. The Lightning Rod ability and increased speed created a fast dragon capable of redirecting electric attacks while dealing devastating damage. The design added more elaborate tail fronds and sharper features while maintaining Sceptile's predatory aesthetic. The dragon typing transformed how Sceptile functioned strategically, covering weaknesses and adding offensive options that made Mega Sceptile viable in formats where regular Sceptile struggled. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, we encounter the ways starter Pokémon have influenced competitive battling and how their designs have been optimized for different playstyles. Venusaur's defensive typing and access to synthesis made it a staple in stall teams, capable of walling opponents and recovering health reliably. The Chlorophyll ability, combined with sun support, transformed Venusaur into a sweeper under specific conditions, demonstrating versatility that few defensive Pokémon possessed. Charizard's multiple forms and strong special attack made it a threat in both singles and doubles formats, with different builds emphasizing different aspects of its design. Solar Power ability, combined with Sun support, turned Charizard into a glass cannon capable of overwhelming opponents before they could retaliate. The Drought ability on Mega Charizard Y set permanent Sun, creating weather support for entire teams built around solar power. This versatility and application made Charizard one of the most adaptable starters across competitive formats. Blastoise's bulk and access to both physical and special moves created flexibility in how it could be built, though it struggled to find consistent competitive niches. The Shell Smash move, boosting offensive stats while lowering defenses, transformed Blastoise into a sweeper capable of breaking through defensive cores. The Spin move utility, combined with decent bulk, gave Blastoise team support value beyond simple attacking. These applications demonstrated that even starters without perfect stats or abilities could find competitive homes through creative movesets. Feraligator's sheer power ability, introduced in Generation 5, doubled attack power when health dropped below a threshold, creating a devastating late-game sweeper. The combination of Swords Dance, Dragon Dance, and sheer power created a Pokémon capable of sweeping entire teams once activated. The design's emphasis on physical power found perfect expression in this ability, transforming Feraligator from decent physical attacker to overwhelming threat. This synergy between design intent and battle mechanics demonstrated how abilities could elevate Pokémon beyond their base stats. Infernape's mixed attacking stats and excellent speed created versatility that few other fire types could match, capable of running physical, special, or mixed sets depending on team needs. The Close Combat and Flare Blitz combination provided powerful stab attacks that hit most opponents hard. The Fake Out move utility gave Infernape support options in doubles formats, creating flexibility across different competitive environments. This adaptability made Infernape consistently viable across multiple generations, demonstrating that well-rounded designs often aged better than specialized ones. Greninja's Protean ability created unpredictability that made it difficult to counter changing type to match moves before using them. This mechanic transformed every attack into a stab move while providing defensive flexibility to resist incoming attacks. The Battle Bond ability, creating Ash Greninja form with increased stats, pushed Greninja into broken territory in some formats. The combination of speed, power, and type flexibility made Greninja one of the most successful competitive starters across any generation. Decidueye's signature Z move, Sinister Arrow Raid, provided guaranteed stab damage that ignored abilities and bypassed certain defensive tactics. The Spirit Shackle move prevented opponents from switching, creating trapping utility that controlled battle tempo. The Long Reach ability, allowing attacks without making contact, avoided abilities that punished physical contact. These tools gave Decidueye specific niches despite statistical limitations, demonstrating that utility often mattered as much as raw power. Incineroar's Intimidate ability lowered opponents' attack on entry, creating immediate defensive value that made it invaluable in doubles formats. The Fake Out support, combined with Intimidate cycling through switches, created tempo control that few other Pokémon could match. The Assault Vest build, sacrificing special moves for increased special defense, transformed Incineroar into a bulky pivot capable of absorbing hits while threatening damage. This utility focus made Incineroar one of the most used Pokémon in video game championships despite mediocre speed stats. Rillaboom's Grassy Surge ability created terrain that boosted grass moves and provided passive healing, supporting both Rillaboom and teammates. The Grassy Glide priority move under grassy terrain created guaranteed first strikes that few Pokémon could survive. The fake-out support in doubles, combined with terrain setting, gave Rillaboom immediate battle impact. The combination of power, utility, and terrain control made Rillaboom a staple in competitive formats across both singles and doubles. Cinderace's Libero ability created similar unpredictability to Protean, changing type to match moves and making predictions difficult. The court change move, swapping entry hazards and screens between sides, provided utility that could completely shift battle momentum. The Pyro Ball signature move, with high power and rare secondary effects, created offensive pressure that forced opponents into defensive positions. These tools made Cinderace immediately viable in competitive formats, demonstrating that abilities often defined starter viability as much as stats. Inteleon's Sniper ability boosted critical hit damage, creating potential for massive damage when combined with moves that guaranteed critical hits. The signature move Snipe Shot, forcing opponents to switch, provided control that few special attackers possessed. The Focus Energy setup, guaranteeing critical hits, transformed Inteleon into a sweeper capable of bypassing defensive stat boosts. These mechanics created a unique niche for Inteleon, despite fragile defenses and common weaknesses. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the cultural impact of starter Pokémon extends far beyond battle, mechanics into merchandising, media representation, and fan culture. Charizard became arguably the most marketable Pokémon, besides Pikachu, appearing on countless products and receiving special treatment across games and media. The preferential focus on Charizard, while commercially successful, created resentment among fans of other starters who felt their favorites were overlooked. Greninja's popularity surged through its prominent anime role, where it received a special bond form exclusive to the protagonist. This media presence, combined with competitive success, made Greninja one of the most recognizable Pokémon from Generation 6. The massive popularity influenced design decisions in later generations, with Game Freak consciously trying to create starters with similar broad appeal. The starter choice represents a player's first major decision in Pokémon games, creating emotional attachment that often persists throughout entire playthroughs and beyond. Many players maintain loyalty to their first chosen starter across multiple playthroughs, treating that initial choice as part of their identity. This emotional connection transforms starters from game mechanics into companions, creating relationships that transcend their role as battle tools. The tradition of choosing grass, fire, or water creates a social bonding experience, with players comparing choices and defending their favorites. Schoolyard debates about which starter was best formed core memories for millions of players, transforming objective game mechanics into subjective personal preferences. These discussions, while seemingly trivial, created communities and shared experiences that defined Pokémon's cultural impact. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at how starter designs reflect the generations they debuted in, both technologically and aesthetically. Kanto starters, designed for the Game Boy's limited sprite capabilities, emphasized simple silhouettes and clear visual identities that would remain recognizable even at small sizes. The designs prioritized clarity over complexity, creating Pokémon that worked within severe technical constraints while remaining memorable. Johto starters, benefiting from Game Boy Color's expanded palette, incorporated more sophisticated color gradients and visual details. The designs grew slightly more complex while maintaining the fundamental clarity established in Generation 1. The balance between technical capability and design ambition created starters that felt like evolution from Kanto without abandoning proven formulas. Hoenn starters, designed for Game Boy Advance's significantly increased power, featured more elaborate designs with additional details and more complex evolutionary transformations. The hardware allowed for larger sprites and more animation frames, enabling designs that would have been impossible in previous generations. The starters reflected this freedom, incorporating elements like Blaziken's fire wrists and Swampert's fin sensors that required additional detail work. Sinnoh starters pushed design ambition further, creating final evolutions that represented significant departures from base forms. Torterra's world tree design would have been impossible to execute effectively on earlier hardware, requiring the DS's capabilities to render properly. The willingness to create such dramatically different evolutionary stages reflected confidence in the hardware's ability to showcase complex designs. Unova starters faced the challenge of creating designs that would work in both sprite and 3D formats, as Generation 5 represented the final pure sprite-based generation before the shift to 3D models. The designs needed to translate effectively across different rendering methods, creating constraints that influenced aesthetic choices. The focus on clear silhouettes and strong shapes ensured starters would work regardless of rendering technology. Kalos starters were designed primarily for 3D from the beginning, creating new design possibilities and challenges. The shift to 3D models required thinking about how Pokémon would look from multiple angles, not just the static profile views that dominated sprite eras. This technological shift influenced design choices, with Greninja's sleek design and Chestnut's bulky armor working particularly well in 3 dimensions. Alola starters continued the 3D tradition while incorporating animation considerations more thoroughly. Decidueya's archer poses and Incineroar's wrestling moves required designs that could support elaborate battle animations. The starters reflected this, with forms and proportions that allowed for dynamic movement while maintaining visual identity. Galar starters, designed for Switch's HD capabilities, featured the most detailed textures and elaborate animations in starter history. Cinderace's soccer animations, Rillaboom's drumming, and Inteleon's finger guns all required designs that could support these elaborate motions while remaining recognizable. The increased detail in fur textures, scale patterns, and visual effects demonstrated how far starter designs had evolved from Generation 1's simple sprites. Paldea starters, benefiting from open-world rendering requirements, needed designs that would look good from any angle and at various distances. The decision to allow players to see starters following them in the overworld influenced design choices, ensuring final evolutions remained appealing even when viewed from behind or at distance. Skeledurge's spectral bird companion and Quaquaval's elaborate feathers both worked as visual identifiers from multiple perspectives. As we drift toward the end of this journey through starter Pokémon, we encounter reflections on what makes these particular creatures so central to the Pokémon experience. The starter choice represents more than team composition or type coverage. It represents philosophy, aesthetic, preference, and personality. Players who choose grass starters often value defense and strategy. Those who pick fire seek offense and spectacle, while water choosers embrace balance and reliability. These archetypes, while not an absolute, create patterns that influence how players approach entire games. The evolution of starter designs across generations reflects both technological advancement and shifting cultural preferences. Early starters emphasized animal basis and elemental representation, creating creatures that felt grounded despite fantastical elements. Later starters increasingly incorporated profession and role-playing elements, creating Pokémon that represented careers or character classes as much as biological creatures. This shift from natural to conceptual design reflects broader changes in how fantasy creatures are conceived and marketed. The three-stage evolution structure creates narrative progression that mirrors player growth through each game, beginning with small, approachable creatures that feel like companions rather than weapons, evolving into adolescent middle stages that show growing power, and finally reaching mature final forms that embody full potential. This progression creates satisfaction that single-stage Pokémon rarely achieve, giving players concrete sense of growth and development. The type triangle of grass, fire, and water creates balance while forcing players to engage with type mechanics from the very beginning. The knowledge that choosing one starter makes certain early battles easier while complicating others teaches fundamental Pokémon strategy through experience rather than explanation. This elegant tutorial, disguised as personal choice, demonstrates brilliant game design that has remained effective across 8 generations. The emotional attachment players form with their chosen starter often exceeds their connection to any other Pokémon on their team. This bond, formed through shared journey and deliberate choice rather than random encounter, creates relationships that persist years after games are completed. Players remember their first starter, their first evolution, their first victory alongside that companion, memories that transform game mechanics into personal narrative. The diversity of starter designs, from realistic animals to fantastical concepts, ensures that different players find different appeal. Some connect with Torterra's grounded earth aesthetic, others with Greninja's sleek ninja design, while still others embrace Primarina's theatrical flair. This variety within consistent structure creates something for everyone while maintaining tradition. The competitive viability of starters varies dramatically, with some becoming metagame staples while others struggle to find homes in serious play. This divide between casual appeal and competitive utility demonstrates that design success can't be measured through battle statistics alone. A starter that fails competitively can still succeed as a beloved companion, demonstrating that different players value different qualities. The Mega Evolutions, Z-moves, and Dynamax forms that have been granted to certain starters reflect both popularity and design potential. Charizard's multiple forms acknowledge its status as a fan favorite, while Blaziken's Mega Evolution validated its competitive dominance. These special forms create additional layers to starter evolution, showing that even final forms can grow under the right circumstances. The cultural iconography of fire, water, and grass as opposing yet balanced forces resonates across cultures, making the starter triangle universally comprehensible. The decision to build the entire franchise around this elemental triangle proved remarkably durable, surviving technological revolutions and cultural shifts without requiring fundamental redesign. The tradition of receiving a starter from a regional professor creates ritualized beginning that marks the true start of each Pokémon journey. This moment, repeated across generations and games, has become as central to the Pokémon experience as catching wild Pokémon or challenging gyms. The choice made in that moment influences not just team composition, but player identity throughout the adventure. The designs themselves range from simple and elegant to complex and elaborate, but each succeeds in creating memorable creatures that stand apart from the hundreds of other Pokémon. Whether through unique type combinations, distinctive silhouettes, or compelling battle mechanics, starters achieve recognition that random route encounters rarely match. This success in creating iconic designs demonstrates the care and attention invested in creatures players will spend entire games alongside. The evolution of what starter Pokémon represent, from simple elemental animals to profession-based character classes, shows how the series has grown more conceptual while maintaining core identity. The balance between innovation and tradition, between surprising players and meeting expectations, defines the challenge of designing each new starter trio. The success of this balance across 8 generations demonstrates remarkable consistency in creative vision. As starter designs continue to evolve, with each new generation, certain principles remain constant. 3 stages: grass, fire, water triangle, evolution that transforms small companions into powerful partners. These traditions, established in Generation 1 and maintained through technological and cultural shifts, create continuity that anchors the entire franchise. The starter. Pokémon, more than any other category of creatures, embody what makes Pokémon endure: the bond between trainer and partner, the growth through shared challenges, the choice that defines a journey. Another quiet detail appears when we examine how regional variants have affected starter Pokémon, creating alternate forms that reinterpret familiar designs through different cultural lenses. Alolan's starters remained unchanged from their original forms, maintaining consistency with their Alola native designs. Galarian starters similarly existed only in their base forms, as they originated in Galar. The concept of regional starter variants would wait for future implementations, though the possibility remained theoretically open. Hisuian forms, introduced in Legends Arceus, brought dramatic reinterpretations of certain evolutionary lines. Hisuian Typhlosion transformed from pure fire typing to fire and ghost, reflecting the region's more spiritual connection to Pokémon. The design shifted from aggressive flames to ghostly fires that flickered with spiritual energy, creating a more mystical interpretation of the Fire Mouse line. The collar of fire became purple and ethereal, suggesting flames from another realm rather than natural combustion. The stat changes in Hisuian Typhlosion reflected the ghost typing, with increased special attack and different defensive distributions. The Flash Fire ability gave way to Frail, creating different strategic applications and team roles. This reinterpretation demonstrated how type changes could fundamentally alter how a Pokémon functioned without abandoning the core design elements. Hisuian Typhlosion remained recognizable as part of Cyndaquil's line, while feeling distinct, separate, its own creature shaped by different environmental pressures. Hisuian Decidueye lost the ghost typing in favor of grass and fighting, creating a dramatically different strategic identity. The design became bulkier, more grounded, with the archer aesthetic shifting toward a wandering warrior. The stat distribution changed to emphasize attack and defense rather than special attack, transforming Decidueye from ranged attacker to physical brawler. The scrappy ability prevented ghost types from being immune to fighting moves, creating offensive pressure that standard Decidueye couldn't match. The decision to create these alternate forms for only 2 starter lines, rather than treating all starters equally, created questions about selection criteria. Why Typhlosion and Decidueye specifically? The answers related to design potential and thematic fit within Hisui's feudal Japanese setting. Both designs offered clear reinterpretation opportunities that aligned with the region's aesthetic and cultural references. Future regional variants might explore other starter lines, but the precedent remains selective rather than comprehensive. Hisuian's Samurott received a dark typing to replace pure water, transforming the samurai aesthetic into something more Ronin-like, masterless, and dangerous. The design incorporated helmet elements more prominently and added darker color schemes that suggested a warrior who had abandoned traditional codes. The Ceaseless Edge ability guaranteed critical hits on certain attacks, creating offensive pressure that standard Samurott lacked. The stat distribution shifted toward attack and physical presence, abandoning Samurot's original mixed attacking approach. The alternate forms demonstrated that starter evolution could extend beyond the traditional 3 stages, that regional pressures could create divergence even in creatures whose designs seemed complete. This flexibility opened creative possibilities for future games, suggesting that beloved starters could receive new interpretations that honored their original designs while creating strategic variety. The success of Hisuian forms in creating distinct experiences while maintaining recognizability validated the regional variant concept for starter lines. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Gigantamax forms affected 3 starter lines, creating temporary transformations that push designs into spectacular territory. Gigantamax Venusaur amplified the flower element dramatically, creating a massive bloom that dominated the entire silhouette. The design emphasized the plant overtaking the animal, suggesting a creature that had fully embraced its grass nature. The G-Max Vine Lash move created persistent damage that punished opponents over multiple turns, adding strategic depth beyond simple power increase. The visual spectacle of Gigantamax Venusaur, with vines spreading across the battlefield and flower petals creating weather effects, demonstrated how Dynamax technology enabled designs that would be impossible at normal scale. The transformation felt earned, amplifying elements present in standard Venusaur rather than introducing completely new concepts. This restraint created transformations that enhanced existing designs rather than replacing them. Gigantamax Charizard received special attention with a design that emphasized its wings and created flames of incredible intensity. The body became more draconic, more powerful, with flames erupting from the mouth and tail with enough force to create visible heat distortion. The G-Max Wildfire move created persistent burning that damaged opponents each turn, creating pressure that forced aggressive play or accepting accumulating damage. The transformation played to Charizard's strengths, creating a form that felt like the ultimate expression of firepower. The preferential treatment given to Charizard, receiving both 2 Mega Evolutions and a Gigantamax form, reflected its commercial success, but also created resentment among fans of other starters. The question of whether popularity should determine which Pokémon receive special forms remained contentious. From a business perspective, investing in popular designs made sense. From a fairness perspective, it created hierarchies among starters that undermined the equality suggested by the initial choice. Gigantamax Blastoise transformed the cannons into an incredible array of artillery, with dozens of smaller cannons emerging from the shell to create overwhelming firepower. The design fully committed to the weapons platform concept, creating a creature that existed primarily to deliver devastating water attacks. The G-Max Cannonade move created persistent damage, similar to Venusaur's Vine Lash, establishing a pattern across the Kanto starter Gigantamax forms. The visual impact of Blastoise's mini cannons firing simultaneously created spectacular battle moments that justified the transformation's existence. Gigantamax Inteleon received a tower-like transformation that emphasized its sniper aesthetic. The tail became a support structure, and the overall pose suggested a creature taking careful aim from an elevated position. The G-Max Hydro Snipe move combined water power with critical hit potential, creating devastating damage when conditions aligned. The transformation felt thematically appropriate, turning Inteleon into a living watchtower, complete with targeting systems and perfect firing position. The limited number of starters receiving Gigantamax forms, only the Kanto Trio and Inteleon, created similar questions about selection as Mega Evolutions had. Why these specific Pokémon? The answers combined commercial considerations with design potential and regional significance. Kanto starters received preferential treatment due to nostalgia and brand recognition, while Intellion's inclusion suggested that each generation's final starter to be revealed might receive special forms. This pattern, if it held, would create predictability while ensuring some representation across generations. Another quick detail appears when we examine how starter Pokémon function in non-traditional game modes. In Pokémon Mystery Dungeon, players become Pokémon themselves, with starter selection determining the protagonist rather than a companion. This role reversal created different relationships with starter species, with players experiencing the world from a starter's perspective. The personality quiz that determined which starter suited the player added another layer, suggesting that starter choice reflected personal qualities beyond simple preference. The dungeon crawler mechanics transformed how starter abilities functioned, with moves requiring different strategies in roguelike environments versus traditional battles. Type advantages remained important, but positioning, room control, and resource management created new considerations. Starters that excelled in traditional games sometimes struggled in Mystery Dungeon's tactical combat, while others found new viability through unique move interactions with dungeon mechanics. In Pokémon Rangers games, starters appeared as potential partner Pokémon that aided the Ranger protagonist. The Capture Styler mechanics transformed battles into rhythm-based challenges where type advantages mattered less than timing and pattern recognition. This context-dependent utility created situations where starter strength or weakness depended more on capture difficulty than combat power. The designs remained recognizable, but their function shifted dramatically, demonstrating starter versatility across different gameplay formulas. Pokémon Conquest reimagined starters within a tactical RPG framework inspired by feudal Japan. The turn-based strategy mechanics created new roles, with positioning and battlefield terrain affecting starter viability as much as type matchups. The Warrior Pokémon Link system created narrative connections that transformed starters from simple combatants into characters with relationships and story arcs. This characterization depth, rarely explored in main series games, showed potential for starters to function in more narrative-focused gameplay. Pokémon Go's implementation of starters balanced accessibility with game design requirements. Community Day events featuring specific starters created regular opportunities to catch, evolve, and obtain special moves. The exclusive move mechanics encouraged players to participate during specific windows, creating engagement patterns that differed from traditional games' self-paced progression. Starters became both common and special simultaneously, available to everyone, but with optimal versions requiring timely participation. The raid battle mechanics transformed certain starters into bosses that required cooperative effort to defeat. Gigantamax raid battles featuring Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise created challenges that honored their power while making them accessible through group play. This cooperative framing created different social dynamics than traditional games, where starter choice represented individual preference. Joe's emphasis on community transformed starters from personal companions into shared challenges and achievements. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the anime's treatment of starters has significantly influenced their cultural perception and popularity. Ash's Charizard, initially disobedient after evolution, created narrative drama that explored the relationship between trainer capability and Pokémon power. The character arc of earning Charizard's respect resonated with audiences and influenced how players thought about their own starter relationships. The anime demonstrated that evolution didn't automatically create harmony, that growth could complicate rather than simplify bonds. The decision to have Ash's Charizard leave to train at Cherisific Valley, acknowledged that sometimes companions outgrow their trainers, that the best choice might be separation rather than forced partnership. This mature handling of the starter-trainer relationship added emotional depth that the games rarely explored. The reunion episodes, where Charizard returned to help Ash in important battles, created payoff that validated both the separation and the enduring bond. This nuanced treatment of starter evolution influenced fan expectations and created story potential beyond simple power progression. May's Blaziken, evolved from Torchic, created a different starter narrative focused on competitive battling and contests. The design's elegant final form suited contest aesthetics while remaining combat effective, demonstrating starter versatility across different competitive venues. The evolution journey emphasized training and dedication, showing a starter growing alongside its trainer through shared effort rather than just experience points. This parallel growth created emotional resonance that made Blaziken's victories feel earned. Dawn's Piplup's refusal to evolve became a defining character trait, creating storylines around identity and choice that questioned whether evolution was always positive. The anime explored whether maintaining current form represented stagnation or authentic self-acceptance. Piplup's insistence on remaining Piplup despite evolution opportunities created character moments that added depth to a creature that could have been simple comic relief. This treatment validated players who chose not to evolve their starters, suggesting that power wasn't the only valid goal. The anime's tendency to give protagonists the fire starter created pattern recognition that influenced player choices. The marketing synergy between anime and games meant that heavily featured starters received more exposure, creating popularity feedback loops. Charizard, Blaziken, and Infernape all benefited from significant anime presence, while grass and water starters often received less focus. This unequal treatment reinforced existing popularity hierarchies, making fire starters even more dominant in cultural consciousness. Serena's Braixen became a key partner in her contest journey, with the magical stick element receiving narrative focus that added personality beyond battle functionality. The design's elegant intermediate form suited the character's journey toward finding her own path, creating the thematic alignment between trainer growth and Pokémon design. The decision not to evolve Braixen into Delphox maintained the more appealing middle stage, demonstrating that final evolutions weren't automatically superior for storytelling purposes. The treatment of starter personalities in the anime created expectations that the games couldn't fully deliver due to their different formats. Anime starters developed distinct personalities, preferences, and relationships that made them characters rather than just battle tools. This characterization created richer viewing experiences, but also set standards that silent game protagonists and text-based narratives struggled to match. The divide between anime characterization and game representation remained a persistent tension in how starters were perceived. Another quiet detail appears when we examine how starter Pokémon have been represented in the trading card game, where balance considerations differ from video game mechanics. Starter. Pokémon appear across multiple card sets, with varying power levels and mechanics that reflect their video game iterations while adapting to TCG-specific gameplay. The basic Stage 1 Stage 2 structure mirrors video game evolution while creating different strategic considerations based on energy costs and bench space. Charizard cards have become some of the most valuable in TCG history, with certain rare printings commanding thousands of dollars at auction. The first edition Shadowless Charizard from the base set achieved iconic status that transcended the game itself, becoming a cultural artifact recognized even by non-players. This extraordinary value reflected Charizard's broader popularity while creating self-reinforcing scarcity that made the cards even more sought after. The phenomenon demonstrated how starter popularity could extend beyond gameplay into collectability and investment. The evolution mechanics in the TCG create different strategic choices than video games, with players deciding whether to prioritize quick evolution for power or maintaining basic forms for lower energy costs. Rare candy items allow skipping middle evolutions, creating shortcuts that don't exist in video games. This mechanical difference means that middle stage starter evolutions sometimes see less play in TCG than their base and final forms, creating a different viability hierarchies than in video games. Starter GX and V cards introduced powerful versions with unique attacks and higher HP that represented fully realized forms with special abilities. These premium versions created new collectability tiers while introducing mechanics that didn't exist in video games. The tag team cards featuring the multiple starters working together created combinations that explored theoretical partnerships, like Charizard and Reshiram cooperating despite never appearing together in main series games. The supporter cards featuring professors giving players their starters created mechanical callbacks to video game traditions while serving functional deck-building purposes. The nostalgic imagery of receiving a starter from Professor Oak, Professor Elm, or other regional researchers connected TCG players to their video game experiences while introducing hand refresh mechanics essential to competitive play. This dual function demonstrated how starters could serve both emotional and mechanical roles simultaneously. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the merchandise ecosystem surrounding starter Pokémon demonstrates their commercial importance beyond games and cards. Plush toys featuring starters, particularly final evolutions, represent significant portions of Pokémon Center sales. The designs translate well to 3 dimensions, with sculptors finding creative solutions for maintaining recognizability while adapting to physical form requirements. Charizard plushes in various sizes have sold millions of units, creating revenue streams that justify continued investment in Charizard-focused content. The Funko Pop figures, while criticized by some collectors for homogenizing distinctive designs, have created accessible collectibles that reach audiences beyond traditional Pokémon merchandise. Starter 3-packs became popular products that encouraged collecting entire trios rather than individual favorites. This packaging strategy reinforced the grass-fire-water triangle while creating display opportunities that honored the initial choices structure. The affordability made these figures gateway products that introduced new collectors to broader Pokémon merchandise ecosystems. The high-end figure market, featuring companies like Kotobukiya and Good Smile, produces detailed starter sculptures that showcase final evolutions in dynamic poses. These premium collectibles treat starters as serious subjects worthy of artistic interpretation, creating pieces that function as display art beyond simple toys. The limited runs and quality materials create collectability that appeals to adult fans willing to invest in displaying their appreciation for specific designs. Clothing and accessories featuring starter Pokémon create wearable fandom expressions that identify enthusiasts in public spaces. The designs appear on everything from subtle jewelry to bold graphic tees, creating a spectrum of visibility that accommodates different comfort levels with public fan expression. Charizard remains the most frequently merchandised starter, appearing on products ranging from skateboard decks to formal wear. The market dominance reflects and reinforces Charizard's cultural position while potentially limiting merchandising opportunities for less popular starters. The Build-A-Bear Workshop collaborations, allowing customers to create custom starter plushes with sound chips, created personalized merchandise experiences. The ability to choose specific starters and add custom details transformed generic products into individual expressions. These customization options acknowledged that starter preference was personal, that different players valued different designs. The success of these collaborations demonstrated demand for participatory merchandising that honored individual relationships with specific starters. Another quiet detail appears when we examine how fan communities have created traditions and culture around starter choices. The competitive Pokémon community's tier lists, while focused on battle viability, create hierarchies that influence casual player perceptions. Starters that excel competitively receive more discussion and analysis, creating expertise ecosystems that make them feel more significant. This knowledge accumulation creates information asymmetries, where popular starters receive comprehensive strategy guides while less viable ones languish with minimal documentation. The Starter Challenge runs, where players attempt to complete games using only their chosen starter, create artificial difficulty that tests understanding of type matchups and battle mechanics. These self-imposed challenges transform starters from team members into protagonists, forcing players to maximize their chosen Pokemon's potential. The YouTube and streaming content featuring these runs creates communities around specific starters, with viewers developing appreciation for designs they might not have chosen personally. These challenges demonstrate starter versatility while creating content that educates and entertains simultaneously. The Nuzlocke variant communities have developed specific strategies for keeping starters alive, recognizing their emotional importance even within permadeath rule sets. The death of a starter in a Nuzlocke run creates narrative weight that few other losses match, as it represents failure to protect the journey's first companion. These emotionally intense moments, shared through written runs and streaming content, demonstrate how mechanical constraints can amplify emotional investment in specific Pokémon. The fan art ecosystems surrounding starters create visual reinterpretations that explore designs from angles official art rarely examines. Artists reimagine starters in different art styles, ages, and contexts, creating variations that honor original designs while adding personal interpretation. The massive volume of Charizard fan art reflects its popularity while creating search difficulties for fans of less popular starters. This attention imbalance creates feedback loops where popular designs receive more creative interpretation, increasing their visibility and reinforcing existing preferences. The shipping communities, creating romantic pairings between different Pokémon, often feature starters due to their prominence and distinct personalities. These fan-created relationships, while non-canonical, demonstrate how starters function as characters beyond their battle mechanics. The most common pairings often involve starters from the same generation or starters with thematic connections, creating interpretations that explore design relationships official content rarely addresses directly. The competitive breeding communities obsess over optimal starter builds, creating detailed guides for achieving perfect individual values and advantageous abilities. The difficulty in obtaining hidden abilities for many starters creates trading economies where rare variants command significant value. These breeding projects represent significant time investments that demonstrate dedication to specific designs beyond casual appreciation. The completed perfect specimens function as trophies as much as battle tools, representing mastery of game mechanics applied to beloved designs. Another quiet detail appears when we examine the signature moves that certain starters have received, creating unique battle identities that extend beyond their typing and stats. Venusaur's Frenzy Plant, shared among all fully evolved grass starters, delivers devastating power at the cost of requiring a recharge turn. This move represents the ultimate grass-type attack, available only to those who have completed the grass starter journey. The 2-turn commitment creates the strategic depth, rewarding prediction and positioning while punishing mistimed usage. The animation, showing vines erupting from the ground with overwhelming force, creates a spectacle that justifies the move's exclusive availability. Blast Burn, the fire starter equivalent, follows the same pattern of overwhelming power balanced by recharge vulnerability. The move's distribution exclusively to fully evolved fire starters creates parity across the type triangle while establishing final evolutions as having transcended normal limitations. Charizard's Blast Burn, erupting flames that consume everything in range, demonstrates the fire starter archetype at its peak expression. The move functions as both competitive tool and narrative device, showing that final evolution has unlocked capabilities impossible for lesser forms. Hydro Cannon completes the trio, giving water starters their own ultimate attack with identical power recharge dynamics. The exclusivity creates a sense of achievement, a reward for completing the evolutionary journey that makes final forms feel qualitatively different from mid-stages. Blastoise firing Hydro Cannon from all its cannons simultaneously creates visual excess that matches the move's mechanical power. These signature moves, while following identical patterns across types, create moments that honor the starter journey's significance. Frenzy Plant, Blast Burn, and Hydro Cannon all require move tutors to learn, adding another layer of investment beyond simple leveling. The requirement to seek out specific NPCs and complete their challenges transforms these moves from automatic acquisitions into earned rewards. This design choice reinforces that starter final evolutions deserve special treatment, that completing the evolutionary path unlocks opportunities unavailable to other Pokémon. The tutor locations, often hidden or post-game content, create discovery, moments that reward thorough exploration. Later generations introduced unique signature moves for specific starter lines rather than type-based sharing. Decidueye's Spirit Shackle traps opponents, preventing switching while dealing damage. This control element creates the strategic applications beyond simple damage output, allowing Decidueye to force unfavorable matchups or trap sweepers. The Ghost Arrow concept, binding spirits through supernatural archery, connects move mechanics to design aesthetics in ways that feel cohesive. Incineroar's Darkest Lariat ignores that opponent's stat changes, cutting through defensive boosts and evasion increases that would normally reduce damage. This mechanic synergizes with Intimidate ability, creating a Pokémon that both lowers opponent attack and ignores their defensive compensation. The Wrestler theme extends to the move itself, with Incineroar using its belt as a weapon that can't be blocked or dodged. The name's Darkness reference connects to dark, typing while suggesting moral ambiguity fitting for a heel wrestler character. Primarina's Sparkling Aria deals damage, while healing burns, creating utility that extends beyond pure offense. The combination of attacking and healing in a single move creates efficiency rare among special attacks. The connection to water and singing, core elements of Primarina's design, makes the healing property feel natural rather than arbitrary. The move's aesthetic, water manipulated through song creating both harm and healing, demonstrates how signature moves can reinforce thematic identity. Rillaboom's drum beating changed how the Pokémon interacted with its signature item, transforming the stump drum from aesthetic element into functional battle tool. The move's guaranteed critical hit on first use creates immediate pressure, forcing opponents into defensive positions. The sound-based attack bypasses substitute, creating utility against defensive strategies. The drum itself becomes integral to battle mechanics, not just visual flair, validating the design's commitment to the drummer concept. Cinderace's Pyro Ball combines high power with guaranteed burn chance, creating a move that functions as both immediate threat and lingering pressure. The Soccer Ball made of fire, kicked with enough force to guarantee impact, connects move mechanics to the athlete design. The move's distribution exclusively to Cinderace creates identity separate from other fire starters, preventing redundancy with Blast Burn while offering different strategic applications. The 120 base power, matching Hydro Cannon and Blast Burn, creates parity while the burn chance adds unique utility. Intellion's Snipe Shot forces switches, creating control that few special attacks provide. The move's flavor, a perfectly aimed water shot that penetrates defenses, connects to the sniper design while creating competitive viability. The ability to ignore Follow Me and Rage Powder, moves that redirect attacks, allows Inteleon to target specific threats in doubles formats. This utility transforms Inteleon from simple special attacker into precision tool capable of dismantling specific team compositions. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the hidden abilities available to starters create strategic diversity that standard abilities don't provide. Contrary on Superior Invert's stat changes, transforming defensive drops into boosts and creating one of the most unique battle mechanics among all starters. The Leaf Storm combination, dropping special attack 2 stages after dealing damage, becomes a massive boost with Contrary active. This synergy transforms Superior from decent special attacker into snowballing threat that grows stronger with each attack. The Contrary mechanic requires opponents to completely rethink how they approach battles against Superior. Traditional defensive strategies that rely on lowering opponents' stats actively strengthen Contrary users. The mind games, predicting whether opponents will try to lower stats or simply attack, add psychological dimensions to battles. Superior's competitive viability increased dramatically with Contrary access, demonstrating how abilities could rescue designs that struggled with standard kits. Protean on Greninja, changing type to match moves before using them, created unpredictability that made Greninja extremely difficult to counter. Every attack became stabby boosted, and defensive typing shifted constantly, preventing opponents from maintaining favorable matchups. The strategic flexibility, combined with Greninja's excellent speed and diverse move pool, created a Pokémon that could adapt to nearly any situation. The mechanic felt perfectly suited to the ninja design, emphasizing adaptability and deception. The Protean nerf in Generation 9, limiting type changes to once per switch in, demonstrated how overwhelming the original mechanic had become. The ability still provided value, but required more strategic timing rather than constant type shifting. This balancing demonstrates ongoing efforts to maintain competitive health while preserving signature mechanics that define Pokémon identities. Greninja remained viable post-nerf, proving its design's fundamental strength extended beyond a single ability. Long reach on Decidueye prevents contact with opponents, avoiding abilities and items that punish physical contact. This defensive utility, combined with Decidueye's physical attack move pool, creates safety that pure damage calculations don't capture. The Archer concept, attacking from range rather than close combat, justifies the non-contact mechanics thematically. The ability transforms how Decidueye approaches physical attackers, removing concerns about rocky helmet damage or rough skin retaliation. Intimidate on Incineroar lowers opponent attack on entry, creating immediate defensive value regardless of battle outcome. The ability to switch repeatedly, lowering attack multiple times, creates tempo control in doubles formats. The wrestler heal theme, psychologically intimidating opponents before physical confrontation, justifies the ability thematically while providing mechanical strength. Incineroar's dominance in video game championships stemmed largely from intimidate utility, demonstrating how abilities could define competitive niches. Grassy Surge on Rillaboom automatically sets grassy terrain on entry, providing team support beyond individual battle capability. The terrain boosts grass moves, provides passive healing, and enables priority grassy glide. This multi-layered utility creates value across multiple turns rather than just immediate impact. The drummer providing environmental support through rhythm and sound fits thematically while creating strategic depth. Libero on Cinderace mirrors Protein's type-changing mechanics, demonstrating that powerful abilities could appear on multiple starters when appropriate. The soccer player concept, adapting position and role as needed, justifies the flexibility thematically. The combination with Court Change creates a Pokémon that controls both immediate type matchups and battlefield conditions, offering strategic versatility across different team compositions. Sniper on Inteleon boosts critical hit damage, creating massive damage potential when combined with Focus Energy or Scope Lens. The ability transforms critical hits from lucky bonuses into strategic certainties, allowing an Inteleon to bypass defensive boosts and walls. The Sniper theme, taking careful aim for precise strikes, justifies the critical hit focus thematically while creating competitive identity distinct from other special attackers. Another quiet detail appears when we examine how starter-based stats distributions reflect their design philosophies and intended battle roles. Venusaur's balanced stats, with slight special attack and special defense emphasis, create a versatile Pokémon capable of both attacking and tanking. The 80, 82, 83 defensive spread provides general bulk rather than specialized resistance, allowing Venusaur to check diverse threats. The 100 special attack, while not exceptional, provides sufficient power when combined with stab moves and growth setup opportunities. Charizard's 109 special attack and 100 speed create a fast special sweeper archetype that influenced how fire starters were designed for generations. The relative frailty, with 78 to 78 85 defensive stats, creates glass cannon dynamics where Charizard must strike quickly before opponents respond. This stat distribution rewards aggressive play, fitting the fire type's thematic association with offense and urgency. The base stat total of 534, matching other Kanto starters, ensures balance while allowing specialization. Blastoise's 105 special attack with decent bulk creates a slower, sturdier water starter that contrasts with Charizard's speed focus. The 79, 100, 105 defensive spread with 78 HP provides general tankiness, allowing Blastoise to absorb hits while preparing counterattacks. The 78 speed, while not fast, prevents Blastoise from being completely outpaced, maintaining relevance in mid-speed tiers. The stat distribution supports multiple playstyles, from defensive tank to shell smash sweeper. Meganium's disappointing stat distribution, with no stat exceeding 100, creates a Pokémon that doesn't excel in any particular role. The 80, 82, 100, 83, 180 spread provides balance, but not specialization, leaving Meganium outclassed by more focused designs. The dual 100s in attack and special attack, stats that shouldn't be invested simultaneously, create inefficiency that competitive players struggle to overcome. This statistical mediocrity contributed to Meganium's poor competitive reception despite appealing design. Typhlosion's 109 special attack mirrors Charizard, establishing a pattern for fire starters, emphasizing offensive power. The 100 speed creates a fast special attacker archetype, though the 78-85 defensive spread maintains glass cannon vulnerability. This stat allocation works competitively, creating clear identity as a sweeper that must be played aggressively. The predictability, while limiting flexibility, creates consistency that makes Typhlosion reliable in its specific role. Feraligator's 105 attack, with access to sheer power, creates physical offense potential that rivals special attacking starters. The 100 HP, with 83, 79, 100 defensive stats, creates surprising bulk for an offensive Pokémon, allowing Feraligator to take hits while setting up. The 78 speed, while mediocre, can be compensated through Dragon Dance boosts or agility. This stat spread supports setup sweeper strategies that reward patience and positioning. Sceptile's 105 special attack and 120 speed create the fastest fully evolved starter, emphasizing hit-and-run tactics. The 70, 65, 85 defensive spread creates extreme fragility, requiring Sceptile to avoid damage rather than absorb it. The speed emphasis fits the lizard design and predatory aesthetic, creating a Pokémon that strikes first or not at all. The Mega Evolution's shift to physical attack created confusion about whether Sceptile was special or physical attacker, demonstrating how stat distributions guide usage patterns. Blaziken's 120 attack and 110 special attack create a true mixed attacker, one of few starters capable of threatening both physically and specially. The 80, 70, 70 defensive stats create vulnerability, but speed boost ability compensates by ensuring Blaziken becomes faster with each turn. This stat distribution revolutionized starter design by proving mixed attacking could work when properly supported by abilities and move pool. Swampert's 110 attack with 90-90-90 defenses create a physical tank archetype, rare among starters. The 100 HP enhances bulk, creating a Pokémon that can both dish out and absorb punishment. The 60 speed represents genuine slowness that can't be easily compensated, requiring Swampert to function in Trick Room or simply tank hits while retaliating. This stat spread creates identity distinct from faster, frailer starters. Torterra's 109 attack with 105 defense creates a physical wall that can also threaten offensive pressure. The 95 HP provides health to leverage defensive stats, though 85 special defense and 56 speed create exploitable weaknesses. The exceptionally low speed, worst among fully evolved starters, relegates Torterra to Trick Room strategies or tank roles. This stat distribution demonstrates how low speed can become defining characteristic rather than simple weakness. Infernape's 104 attack and special attack with 108 speed create a flexible mixed attacker faster than Blaziken. The 76, 71, 71 defensive spread creates typical starter pair frailty, but the speed advantage allows Infernape to strike before most opponents. This stat distribution emphasizes versatility, allowing both physical and special sets depending on team needs. The balance between offense and speed creates a reliable but not overwhelming competitive presence. Empoleon's 111 special attack with 101 special defense creates a specially focused tank, rare among water starters. The 84 HP, 88 defense, and 60 speed create a Pokémon that absorbs special attacks while retaliating with powerful water and steel moves. The unique typing enhances this defensive profile, creating a starter that functions fundamentally differently than previous water types. This stat distribution validates defensive starter archetypes as competitive viable. Superior's 75 attack and special attack with 113 speed created a Pokémon that struggled offensively until Contrary gave it setup potential. The 75-95-95 defensive spread provides decent bulk for maintaining Contrary boosts over multiple turns. The low offensive stats, seemingly a weakness, became a strength with Contrary Leaf Storm, demonstrating how abilities can completely transform stat distributions. Implications. Emboar's 123 attack with 100 special attack creates mixed potential, though physical sets dominate due to move availability. The 110 HP provides health rare among starters, though 65-65-65 speed and defensive stats create a slow, somewhat fragile tank. This stat distribution tries to balance multiple archetypes without fully committing to any, creating a Pokémon that feels uncertain about its identity. Samurot's 108 attack with 100 special attack maintains mixed potential, though physical moves generally provide better coverage. The 95 HP with 85-70-70 defensive spread and speed creates a balanced but unexceptional stat distribution. This lack of specialization prevents Samurott from defining a clear competitive niche, demonstrating that balanced stats aren't always advantageous compared to focused distributions. Chestnut's 107 attack with 122 defense creates a physical tank archetype reinforced by its design. The 88 HP, 75 special defense, and 64 speed create a Pokémon built to absorb physical hits while retaliating with fighting and grass moves. The stat distribution perfectly matches the Knight aesthetic, creating coherence between visual design and mechanical function. Delphox's 114 special attack with 104 speed creates a fast special attacker, though the speed falls short of truly fast tiers. The 75 HP with 72 1-169 defensive stats creates moderate fragility, requiring careful positioning. This stat distribution supports Mage archetype while maintaining enough bulk to survive stray hits. Greninja's 103 attack and special attack with 122 speed creates a flexible attacker, emphasizing speed above all. The 72 HP with 67-71-61 defensive stats creates pronounced fragility, making Greninja a true glass cannon. This stat distribution, combined with Protean, created one of the most successful competitive starters, demonstrating that specialization often beats balance. Decidueya's 107 attack with 100 special attack maintains mixed potential, though physical sets dominate. The 78 HP with 75 defenses and 70 speed creates a Pokémon too slow to sweep and too frail to tank effectively. This awkward stat distribution contributed to Decidueya's competitive struggles, demonstrating that interesting design doesn't guarantee statistical success. Incineroar's 115 attack with 90 defenses creates a bulky physical attacker archetype rare among fire starters. The 95 HP enhances tankiness, though 60 speed represents genuine slowness, requiring Trick Room support. This stat distribution, combined with Intimidate, creates defensive utility that transcends raw numbers, demonstrating that abilities and stats must be evaluated together. Primarina's 126 special attack, highest among all starters, creates a special wall breaker capable of overwhelming even resistant opponents. The 80 HP, with 74, 166, 60 defensive stats, and speed, creates a slow, specially defensive attacker. This stat distribution creates clear identity as a bulky, special attacker that trades speed for power and special bulk. Rillaboom's 125 attack, tied for highest physical attack among starters, creates a physical powerhouse. The 100 HP with 90, 70, 85, 60 defensive stats, and speed creates a slow, physically bulky attacker. This distribution supports the drummer tank archetype, creating a Pokémon that absorbs hits while dealing massive damage. Cinderace's 116 attack with 119 speed creates a fast physical sweeper archetype. The 80 HP with 75 to 65 defensive stats creates moderate fragility, requiring aggressive play. This distribution emphasizes the striker concept, creating a Pokémon built to score quickly before opponents respond. Inteleon's 125 special attack matches Rillaboom's attack power, creating parallel offensive threats. The 70 HP with 65 defensive stats and 120 speed creates extreme glass cannon dynamics. This distribution creates the most fragile, fully evolved starter, requiring perfect positioning and prediction. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the shiny color variations for starters create additional collectability and aesthetic diversity. Shiny Charizard's black coloration with red wings created one of the most dramatic shiny transformations, turning the iconic orange dragon into something darker and more menacing. The color shift enhanced rather than diminished appeal, creating a variant that many players prefer to the standard form. This successful shiny design influenced how later shinies were conceived, demonstrating that dramatic changes could work when executed thoughtfully. Shiny Greninja's black and red color scheme created a ninja aesthetic that felt more traditional than the standard blue. The transformation maintained Greninja's core design while offering a color variant that suited different aesthetic preferences. The popularity of shiny Greninja, combined with regular form's success, created a Pokémon with two equally beloved appearances, a rarity among starters. Shiny, Meganium's slightly different pink hue created subtle variation that disappointed players expecting dramatic changes. This understated approach to shiny forms became controversial when applied to already popular designs, as collectors felt the effort to obtain shinies wasn't rewarded with sufficiently distinct appearances. The lesson learned influenced later generations, where shiny forms generally feature more obvious changes. Shiny Serperior's blue coloration transformed the regal green into something aquatic, creating a color shift that changed the Pokémon's entire aesthetic. The dramatic change satisfied players seeking obvious visual distinction while maintaining Serperior's elegant design. This balance between change and consistency represents a successful shiny design that honors the original while creating genuine alternative. As starter Pokémon continue to evolve through new games, forms, and interpretations, their role as gateway creatures into the broader Pokémon world remains constant. Every new generation brings 3 more starters, 3 more first companions, 3 more choices that will shape how players experience the region being explored. The grass-fire-water triangle persists, a tradition so fundamental that abandoning it would feel like betraying the series' identity. Another quiet detail appears when we examine how starter breeding mechanics create additional layers of strategy and planning. The ability to breed starters, introduced in Generation 2, transformed them from unique companions into species that could be propagated and traded. This change democratized starter availability while creating breeding projects focused on optimal movesets and abilities. The gender ratio, 7 males to 1 female, created scarcity around female starters necessary for breeding, establishing trading economies where female specimens commanded premium value. The egg moves available to starters, learned through careful breeding with compatible Pokémon, expand their competitive move pool beyond natural level-up progression. Charizard's access to Dragon Dance through breeding with dragons creates setup sweeper potential unavailable through normal play. The process of obtaining these moves, requiring specific breeding chains and careful parent selection, adds depth to competitive preparation. The knowledge required to navigate breeding mechanics transforms casual players into students of Pokémon biology and compatibility. Venusaur's access to power, whipped through breeding, provides physical grass coverage that supplements its special attacking nature. This option allows mixed sets that surprise opponents expecting purely special attacks. The breeding process, requiring specific parent species and careful move inheritance, demonstrates how egg moves create strategic diversity. The investment required to obtain optimal egg moves creates distinction between casually trained and competitively bred starters. The hidden ability, breeding mechanics, requiring parents with hidden abilities to produce offspring with those same abilities, created additional complexity. The difficulty in obtaining starter hidden abilities, often distributed through special events, created scarcity that persists across generations. Female hidden ability starters became especially valuable as they guaranteed a hidden ability inheritance when breeding with males of the same species. This gender-based inheritance created trading dynamics where female hidden ability starters commanded extraordinary value. Greninja's protein hidden ability, available only through specific distributions, created a coveted variant that transformed competitive viability. The breeding process to obtain multiple Protean Greninja for different teams required extensive time investment and trading network access. This artificial scarcity, created by distribution limitations rather than game mechanics, demonstrated how availability influenced perceived value independent of actual battle capability. The nature breeding mechanics, using Everstone to guarantee nature inheritance, allowed breeders to create starters with optimal stat distributions. The Adamant Blaziken, maximizing attack at the expense of special attack, represented optimal nature for physical sets. The Modest Delphox, boosting special attack while reducing attack, created ideal special sweeper nature. These optimization processes transformed starter acquisition from simple playing to calculated planning and execution. The individual value breeding, pursuing perfect stats in relevant categories, represented the peak of starter optimization. The process of hatching hundreds of eggs, checking stats, and incrementally improving breeding, parents created endgame content that extended far beyond casual play. The Perfect 6 IV starter, while unnecessary for casual play, represented mastery achievement that dedicated players pursued. These breeding projects created communities sharing parent Pokémon and celebrating successful hatches. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the role of starters in Pokémon lore and world building creates narrative depth beyond their mechanical functions. The Professor tradition, giving new trainers a choice of 3 starters, establishes social customs that define how Pokémon journeys begin. The limited availability suggests starters represent carefully bred, specially raised Pokémon deemed suitable for beginning trainers. This scarcity creates questions about where starter populations exist in the wild and how they're propagated for distribution. The Pokédex entries for starter Pokémon sometimes reference behaviors and habitats that players never encounter in gameplay. Venusaur descriptions about sunbathing to strengthen the flower suggest ecology and daily routines beyond battle functionality. These details create richer characterization, suggesting starters have lives and needs beyond their role as combat partners. The disconnect between described behaviors and gameplay limitations creates space for player imagination to fill gaps. Charizard's Pokédex entries describing its flames melting glaciers create power scaling that seems inconsistent with battle damage calculations. These narrative exaggerations serve to make Pokémon feel more impressive and powerful, even if gameplay mechanics limit their actual capabilities. The separation between lore power and mechanical balance demonstrates how different aspects of Pokémon design serve different purposes. Lore creates wonder and excitement. Mechanics create playable challenge. Blastoise's cannons, shooting water with enough force to pierce steel plates, creates similar power fantasy that battle damage doesn't quite match. The creative tension between narrative and gameplay reflects broader challenge of adapting fantastic creatures into balanced game mechanics. The compromise allows both impressive descriptions and functional gameplay, serving different player needs simultaneously. The mystery surrounding how wild starter populations exist and function remains largely unexplored in main series games. Do wild Venusaur live in forests somewhere? Do Charizard form territorial groups in volcanic regions? The games rarely show wild starters, maintaining their special status while creating ecological questions. This deliberate ambiguity preserves starter mystique while avoiding conflicts between wild populations and carefully distributed specimens. The anime occasionally shows wild starter populations, creating ecology that games don't explore. The Squirtle Squad episode introduced social structures and behaviors that transformed Squirtle from isolated individuals into complex social species. These narrative expansions enrich starters beyond their game representations, creating fuller pictures of what these creatures might be like in natural environments. The tension between game mechanics and anime characterization creates complementary views that together form more complete understanding. Another quiet detail appears when examining how starter availability in different games affects perceived rarity and value. The Friend Safari mechanic in Generation 6 allowed access to hidden ability starters, creating first widespread availability of these sought-after variants. This democratization lowered trading value while making competitive teams more accessible to casual players. The balance between exclusivity and accessibility reflects ongoing tension in Pokémon design between rewarding dedicated players and welcoming new participants. The event distributions, featuring special starters with unique moves or abilities, create collectible variants beyond standard breeding. The Surfing Pikachu events, while not traditional starters, established precedent for special distributions with unique moves. These limited events create scarcity that persists even when similar variants become breedable. Original event Pokémon maintain historical significance. The practice of collecting event starters creates parallel goal to competitive team building. The Pokémon Bank and home transfer systems allowed starters from older generations to travel forward into new games, maintaining continuity across hardware generations. This cross-generational portability creates attachment to specific individuals rather than treating starters as interchangeable specimens. Players can maintain relationships with their original starter across multiple games and years, creating persistent companions that transcend individual game experiences. The practice of transferring starters forward creates questions about whether new game starters should be chosen or old favorites imported. This choice between fresh start and maintained continuity reflects different philosophies about how Pokémon games should be experienced. Some players value starting each generation with new partners, while others prefer maintaining established teams. The availability of both options accommodates different playstyles and relationships with Pokémon. As we drift toward the conclusion of this journey, the evolution of starter designs across 8 generations demonstrates remarkable creative consistency while embracing gradual innovation. The fundamental structure, 3 stages, grass, fire, water triangle, early companion evolving into powerful partner has remained stable, while specific implementations explored diverse possibilities. This balance between tradition and experimentation has allowed each generation to feel fresh while maintaining franchise identity. The designs themselves range from realistic animal interpretations to fantastical profession-based concepts, demonstrating expanding creative ambition. Kanto starters drew heavily from recognizable animals, creating approachable creatures that felt grounded despite elemental powers. Later generations increasingly embraced conceptual designs representing careers, character classes, and abstract concepts. This evolution from natural to conceptual reflects broader shifts in fantasy creature design across media. The competitive viability of starters varies dramatically, with some defining metagames while others struggle for relevance. This disparity between casual appeal and competitive success demonstrates that different players value different qualities. A starter failing competitively can still succeed as beloved companion, validating multiple success criteria beyond tournament results. The tension between creating powerful battlers and appealing companions has shaped every starter design decision. The cultural impact of starters extends far beyond gameplay into merchandise, media representation, and social bonding. The tradition of choosing and defending a favorite starter creates shared experiences that unite players across demographics and generations. These discussions, while sometimes trivial, form core memories and social connections that define Pokémon's broader cultural significance. The starter choice represents more than game mechanics, functioning as personality expression and identity marker. The emotional connections formed with chosen starters persist long after games conclude, creating nostalgia that influences how players approach future generations. Many players maintain loyalty to their first starter across entire lifetimes, treating that initial choice as formative experience. This enduring attachment transforms game mechanics into meaningful personal history, elevating the starters from software constructs to companions remembered with genuine affection. The grass-fire-water triangle, while simple, creates elemental balance that has proven remarkably durable across 3 decades of games. The decision to build the franchise around this specific type combination, rather than other possibilities, demonstrates how foundational choices influence everything that follows. The triangle's persistence suggests fundamental wisdom in the design that continues to serve the series well. The 3-stage evolution structure creates narrative arc that mirrors player progression through each game, starting small and growing alongside their chosen companion. This parallel development creates emotional investment that single-stage Pokémon rarely achieve. As players witness and enable their starter's transformation, the evolution moments represent milestones that mark progress and create memories, transforming level-up mechanics into story beats. The designs themselves have become iconic, with final evolutions particularly achieving recognition that transcends the games themselves. Charizard's silhouette remains instantly recognizable to millions who've never played Pokémon, demonstrating how successful designs achieve cultural permanence. This level of recognition validates the care invested in starter designs and justifies the special treatment they receive across games and media. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed drifting through this gentle story, another video is waiting on the left of your screen. Let it play softly beside you. You may drift into sleep while something new unfolds.